Good evening and welcome to another edition of Spaced Out Radio tonight as we kick off year number 8 on the mighty SOR talking extraordinary, the revelation. Jon Sumple with J3 Films is our guest tonight. Before we bring him on in, let's say hello to everyone who is in our chat room so far tonight. Todd Purdon in the gold medal position, race fan taking home the silver, the gorgeous Cosmic Fleur with a bronze medal. Hey, Nicola and Simon, good to see you. Smithy, thank you so much for kicking off the super chat tonight with that wonderful super sticker. Really do appreciate your love and support of Spaced Out Radio. And this is why Smithy will be signing autographs after the show. If you don't mind, to the right of the studio. We also want to give a shout out to Mennonite Abe, John Swan, the Gorgeous Oracles and Beyond for coming on in early. And there's Awesome Ann Palmer. Gorgeous Elaine from the United Kingdom, thank you for joining us as we continue with roll call here. Goober Bear, Jurassic Joey, good to see you both. Wes H., nice to have you back. Nightmare and Luscious Jules, good to see you guys. Thank you for joining us. JR, how you doing, bud? JR will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, to the right of the studio. Downshift and Lee Poping, how you doing? Good to have you both here. Uncle Dale and his power stash are here. Remember, if you're in Austin, Texas, and you see Uncle Dale, rub his power stash for literally good luck right through Christmas. Okay, there's gorgeous Nicole Perrin and Ian McFadden. Good to see you. Stakes on a UFO. Nice to have you back, buddy. Spooky Morales and his trumpet are here, waiting for the end of the show patiently so he can perform. Chad Smith. I'm Chad Smith. You're not. I am Chad Smith. Richard Elmore, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you. And there's our man, Millennium. Nice to have you here. And there's the Dutch princess herself, Sally Vandevoort. Looking beautiful tonight, Sally. Thank you for joining us as we continue on with roll call here. Rooted in gorgeous sacredness. How are you? Thank you for joining us. And there is lovely LaDonna. There she is. Give us a wave if you don't mind, LaDonna. We always wave back. And there is the stunning Purpose and Grace. And, of course, look who it is. It's the Gong Show himself, Grand Master. There he is, everyone. Vash the Impaler, what's going on, buddy? The stunning Wagon Breath, 11.3. The beautiful Jan has returned. Gorgeous Helena. Magni, how you doing? Welcome to our chat room for the first time, buddy. Really appreciate you coming on in. I hope you enjoy yourself. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Alexander, how's it going? Good to see you. And who else do we have? Gordium, nice to have you here. Phil Minervino, always a pleasure, my fellow Canuck. Roy the Boy, R&R, $5,900. Good to have you all here. The stunning Avi May. There you go. Yes. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, always a pleasure to have you here, brother. How you doing? Banner Smith, good to see you. Advocate for Peace, nice to have you back. Thank you for joining us. And who else do we have in our roll call? Oh, there's gorgeous Pam McSee. She has arrived. The stunning Carol has returned. And Phil, thank you so much for that wonderful super chat. Once again, the super chat is a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you so much, Phil. Ross Lambda, good to see you. Joe Smith, good for you coming on in. We appreciate you. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. And we are caught up right now. So far, we're going to start the radio feed right now. And what else do we have to do here? And John Hudson is apparently going to be ready for the big show tonight. Oh, that's perfect. And we're ready. We're ready. I'm stretched out. Toe tag, how you doing? Nice to have you here. The lovely Deanna's vlog. Nice to have you back. And yeah. So, well, what can we talk about here? I don't know. How about some aliens, ET contact? Because Jon Sumple from J3 Films is here. And he's got a nice tight mustache. You'll really enjoy that lip blade that he has. And yeah, we got about 20 seconds. Thank you to everybody tuning us in and who tuned us in last night for our 7th anniversary show, which was absolutely amazing. Remember, the Super Chat is a great way to support what we do on a nightly basis here on Spaced Out Radio. And you know what? Check out our store. We got some new swag up there as well. So do me a favor, because we're going to launch here in about 5 seconds. Get your horns up. Get ready to rock. Here comes Bumblefoot. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. All right, Jon Sumple is here. He is part of J3 Films, and we are going to have a great night with him tonight. You've heard him on this show before because he is one of the brains behind a series of documentaries called, yes, The Extraordinary. His latest, called The Revelations, is about addressing these implications and detailing the origins of ET interaction, abductions, and hybridization programs. The film focuses on three specific paradigms: biblical, ascension, and colonization, that attempt to define the agenda behind the phenomena. What is the phenomena? What is going on? And how are we where we are today? Jon Sumple, appreciate you coming on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How are you?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me on. I have a feeling that this is going to be the absolute best show so far for year 8.
I think so. And let's kick it off absolutely perfectly here, my friend, because, you know, we have talked to you before about your movies, and we talked to you right before you brought out The Revelation. But now that it is out, it is circulating, it is, you know, taking off. There really is a real public interest in these topics, isn't there?
Yes, I think so. And I think it's interesting too, because we've had these conversations amongst ourselves and with other people as well, is over the last 20 years, the preponderance of evidence that has slowly but surely made its way into the public domain has people just kind of going like, yeah, just another, you know, light in the sky. Oh, just another craft. Oh, the government. There's no sense of wonder anymore. So I think that's a good thing, because there's an open mind towards what the possibilities could be. But there needs to be an awful lot of wonder to surprise people or to really make them sit up in their seat.
Very true. You know, let's introduce you to our audience for those who may not have heard of you before. How did you gain interest in this whole phenomena, and why is it important to make these documentaries?
Well, I kind of got involved by accident. It wasn't this mission that I was on from an early age. Jack Roth, who's my creative partner at J3 Films, and I worked together on a project back in the mid-90s in the paranormal realm, and put together a proof of concept for a television show that was a little bit too early for its time. It was basically Most Haunted before, about 6-7 years before Most Haunted came out. So we were way ahead of the curve, and there wasn't a lot of interest when we pitched it, but it eventually created an entire genre within the television world that has taken over cable and television. But from there was a lull from the late 90s until about 2008, when Jack wanted to do a project of going around the Southwest and documenting. It was kind of like a guerrilla documentary style, a travel documentary where we would go to different locations within the Southwest and famous UFO sites and just document what we saw, the people that we encountered. And that was in the works. And he went to an event in Colorado. It was a Stephen Greer event, and he met Alejandro Rojas and Chuck Zukowski and was introduced to the Stan Romanek story. He called me up that night and said, I found a really cool story that it just sounds too good to be true, and I think we should do that one instead. So long story short, I got involved in directing that, and the rest, they say, I think, is history. But when I first started doing it, I never had the intention that this would be one of the things that I was known for. If you had asked me at the end of the first one, would I do another one? I probably would have said no. But then the opportunity came to have the first film released on Netflix, and our distributor, The Orchard, now 1091 Pictures, said, we'd like you to do some more. And that's when we came up with the concept of the trilogy, and that led us to having the opportunity to do the Extraordinary, the Seeding, and then Extraordinary, the Revelation. So it's been an amazing 10 years. Have learned a lot, and I would say, to answer the question, the biggest thing that I've learned is that presenting the information in a way that is digestible to a wider audience helps get the story out there and stimulates discussion that might not be happening otherwise.
Were you always a believer in this phenomena, or did you have to see it to believe it?
I started out at an early age. My father worked in an engineering company that developed the touchdown light on the first lunar module landing on the moon. So there was a lot of space talk at the table when I was very, very young. And we were exposed to a lot of astronomy photographs. And as the space program evolved, that was something that was on my radar and had a fascination with space. But then when I was around 8 or 9 years old, a couple lights in the sky that my dad saw in late summer evening or dusk time in the summer in or Fairfield County, Pennsylvania, Fairfield County, Connecticut. And twice on 2 different occasions, I think about a year apart, saw lights in the sky. And then I saw, when I was around 11 years old with a friend, a light land in the woods in front of our house. And we both looked at each other and said, did you just see what I saw? And so I had exposure to it, believed that there was something else out there, but I never really spent a lot of time exploring the phenomena. So it's something that I've always held space for it, but I've never really spent a lot of time with it.
Are you an experiencer yourself?
I do not believe I am. I believe that I have maybe a propensity for that to happen at some point. There's been a lot of interaction based on the people that we've talked to and things that have happened to us as a result of some of the people that we've been involved with over the last several years that have involved us in their stories more so than becoming our own. But it is definitely something that I firmly believe is happening to people. Just because it hasn't happened to me doesn't mean that I shouldn't believe and I shouldn't have compassion for them. I definitely do.
When you go down this path, it can open so many doors and take you down so many rabbit holes and so many different places. I'm curious for you, now that you're 3 movies into this topic of this genre, how do you feel about your attitude towards this subject matter now?
Well, I would say that like I said, when I was working on the first film, there was part of me that was saying, oh, I don't want to be pigeonholed. That's one thing that I really don't want to be pigeonholed as a UFO, documentary filmmaker. And when we were making the second film, The Seeding, a light bulb went on as I was conducting interviews, and specifically when I was doing the interview with Melinda Leslie. There was an aha moment for me that this was not about the phenomena, it was about the human experience. And I have no issue telling stories, interesting stories about the human experience. And I would say that a majority of the people that we've talked to over the last decade have had profound experiences that have altered their beliefs and change the way they live their lives. And I can't question that. I think what I've learned is that I need to accept that and find a place for it and be curious enough to explore further. And one of the things that I have done that might be a little bit different from, and I think not just me, but just within J3 Films, Jack is much more of a researcher than I am. And I've intentionally, after we made the first film, did not want to kind of go down the rabbit hole of learning everything there is to know, because I wanted to have that sense of curiosity and wonder during the interview process. And so Jack would do a lot of the research. We would kind of talk about loosely what we would want the story to be. And then we would go into the interviews and I would be curious as opposed to having an agenda. So I truly, during the interview process, am trying to educate myself as opposed to saying, okay, this is what I want to get out of this. So we've had some people asked us over the years, well, why didn't you go deeper down to that? Why didn't you expose that? And I'm like, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to present information so that the audience can formulate their own opinions.
And what have those opinions been from the audience?
I think the number one feedback that we've received from the first two films was, thank you so much for making this. I now realize that I'm not crazy, that I'm not alone, that there are other people that are having the same experiences as me. I just within the last 2 weeks received 2 messages from women who just watched The Seeding. And one of them said this, it was like I was watching my whole life unfold in a movie that wasn't about me. She said everything that I saw in that film was happening to me. Another woman said my skin crawled throughout the whole film. She said I constantly witnessed things that had happened to me happening to other people. And what has been most rewarding is that people have found comfort in that. So there are a lot of people who have reached out to us, thousands of people. I would say it's probably over 3,000 people who have reached out to us over the last several years and have said, this makes me realize that there are other people out there just like me. I just need to find them. And there's been a lot of requests for, well, where do I go? Who should I talk to? And we've helped point people to opportunities to connect with people, whether it's groups or with individuals who might be able to help them make better sense of the experiences that they've had. Because the people who've had these experiences need somebody that will listen to them without judging them, and have compassion and be willing to console them and be willing to have the conversation so that it uncovers as much as they need to at any given time to truly understand that, one, they're not alone, and two, that what's happened to them has happened to, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of other people.
We see a world that is absolutely transfixed with this subject right now due to what's happened over the last 4 years with major media coverage and the U.S. military coming out and admitting they are now tracking this phenomena down. How has that interest affected your films?
Well, I think one of the things that we wanted to accomplish with this third film, because this is a trilogy, it's a loosely based trilogy. There's the sequence of events is really what kind of links them together. The first film was takes you on a journey from seeing lights into the sky to an abduction to hybridization programs to hybrid children. The second film picks up from there and talks about, the first film was one person's journey. The second film is about multiple people who've had hybridization program abductions and experimentation, sexual reproduction, and seeing hybrid children either earthbound or on craft in future abductions, and exploring the reality of what it's like to go through that. The third film, we thought it was important to kind of take you on a journey of, okay, so we've got those first basics out of the way. What's the big picture? What is it all, how is it all connected? So the film takes you on a journey from the Big Bang all the way to present day. So anybody who watches the film, you'll notice there's a ticking sound throughout. So the intention there is to take you on a journey through time. So the ticking component is heard throughout, specifically and prominently in the beginning and at the end of the film, to give you that sense of we're moving through time, we're learning as we go, there's more information coming out, we're accepting it more than we have before, we're open to it. But a big part of the film that I think was one of the more important parts of the film was the discussion around what has changed, what's different. And in the course of the third act of the film, the discussion is around the U.S. government is now admitting to something has happened, whereas before they would poo-poo it, they would try to spin it in a way that made it sound ridiculous, but they're not doing that this time. Why? Why is there something different? And it's been over the last several years. Nick Pope specifically talks about the U.S. had a document where they said, since 2014, we have been paying attention to these differently. And the way that it was positioned was that the language that was used was more of a threat. In the past, it had been always something that they ridiculed. So the language used was more of a threat. They're taking it more seriously. And now that it's out there, they have to figure out the best way to disseminate the information. So it's interesting that we've seen this shift. The 2017 New York Times article really kind of set us on this current path. But instead of it being like, oh my God, what's this going to be? People are like, I knew it. Yep, they're there. Yep, we knew it. So there's this, they're like, okay, yeah, there's an acceptance that just didn't exist 20, 30 years ago.
You think more people are accepting of the phenomena these days? There's a difference between curiosity and acceptance. I see a lot of curiosity. I'm not sure I see a lot of acceptance.
Well, I think the acceptance is something that people haven't really bridged to. And the curiosity is more about what's next, what's going to come next. And it's not going to be, a craft landing on the White House lawn or a Capitol somewhere else in the world. That's just not going to happen. It's going to be the slow release of information. And it appears what's happening right now is that the focus is on technology. We've shifted from UFOs to UAPs. We're focusing on craft, not on sentient beings that are operating them. So the focus is all on technology. So there seems to be this leading the horse to the water type of thing that is creating more curiosity. But the acceptance would be when we get to the point of, well, what if this is all true? What's going to happen next? And in the film, we explore 3 different paradigms: the biblical, the ascension, and the colonization. All believe in the same thing: objects in the sky, abductions, hybridization programs, hybrids, but their outcomes are very, very different. So that's when the realization that you have to start to contemplate is, well, what if this is true? What if this is happening? What does that mean to our existence? How does it change? So fear has been something that has been a big part of it for I would say the first 50 years. But recently, the fear has been less of an issue. I think it's more about understanding the curiosity, but fear may return once we have a clear understanding of what disclosure is and what is being disclosed.
And that's the big thing, is we got about 5 minutes left before we have to go to break. Jon Sumple is our guest tonight from J3 Films. The Extraordinary, The Revelation is the one you want to check on out. John, I mean, we see so much going on right now, including a real live battle right now. We might have to carry this topic into the next half hour, but I'm very curious to get your opinion on this. We are literally seeing a live battle right now that I'm surprised the media hasn't caught on to. I'm surprised even ufology hasn't caught on to. And that is the battle between the military industrial complex and the voted in politicians who are wanting to bring this subject public and bring it forward. And the military, through their AOI MSG, is basically saying, you don't need to handle that. We will handle that. You don't have any say. We're not releasing any information to you guys or the public. And if we do, it will be minimal at our discretion. I mean, this goes against everything that is democratic, my friend. What is your opinion on what's going on right now?
I think, when we look back at the Cold War, and when Roswell happened, and all of a sudden this is literally on the radar, we were in a situation where we didn't know what it was, and the fear was that it was our enemies, and therefore it was in the best intentions were to protect the citizens of the United States or the citizens of whatever country that you live in. So once this became something that was part of the political in military complex, it became buried very, very quickly and very, very deeply. And it started to move outside of just military. The best way they could keep it a secret is to put it out into a public and private companies or public companies and have it buried within projects, so that you had several layers deep, and it wasn't just a military project. It was a public or a privately held company project that had black or gray ops attached to it in some way, shape, or form. So the military and government did a very good job. And I would say it's probably more the military. I don't think elected officials really have a clue about what is going on. I really don't think that they're privy to the information. They want it. I think they grandstand a little bit, thinking that they're going to score brownie points by, taking a stand on this. But it's just not. It's just not something that is a political issue, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is very, very interesting to see what is going to happen here, because, I mean, the way publicly the military is shutting down, whether it's Senator Gillibrand's report, whether it's somebody like Tim Burchett, who came out very scathing against the military and the AOI MSG today publicly in Congress, or the Senate, pardon me. I mean, this is turning out to be an all-out internal battle between what it seems like good versus evil.
I think it's a good thing, though. I think the fact that it might be some grandstanding with this too, but it still is making it part of a public conversation. It's not private. It's out there. People are talking about it. Why is the military releasing this information? Nick Pope says in the film, is if the governments of the world and the military infrastructure of the world wanted to keep this a secret, they easily could. They would have no problem burying this. They could spin it. They could talk about the Tic Tac and some of the other videos that have come out in a way that said these are drones. These are, we know what they are. No big deal. Nothing to see here. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Move along. But that didn't happen. And when things quieted down after that first came out, they brought it back up again. Why? The opinion that we have, and one of the points we talk about in the film, is that this is a slow disclosure, a controlled disclosure, and they're moving us along to the beat of their drum into how they want it to be released, and it will be released when they're ready. But they're filtering information into the conversation, so there is less of a surprise. And it's not about UFOs and green men and flying saucers. It's about UAPs and technology.
Very true. Very true. We only have, let me check here, about 28 seconds. So I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because it's a good time to take a break here at the bottom of the hour from Extraordinary, the Revelation. We have producer Jon Sumple of J3 Films. When we come back, we're going to get into the history of UFOs. How far back does this go? Well, according to the Department of National Intelligence in the United States, it's 2004, not 1947, not 947. How about before Christ and after? Jon Sumple explains the revelation as we continue on Spaced Out Radio, so stay tuned. Lots of UFO talk tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be back. All right, we're clear.
Cool.
Hold on, let me get rid of these. I got so much work to do in here tomorrow. Let's see here. There we go. There we go. All right, we're good. We're good.
So just one thing to revelations, plural, just so we get that right throughout the show. And
no problem.
Yeah, and I do want to mention that the film is now live, available for all to see as of yesterday.
That is exciting.
It is.
Hi, Lori Wagner, if you're listening. I know Lori Wagner is listening somewhere.
She is.
Yes.
She won't come on, though, but she did go on the radio for the very first time earlier this week, and I told her she should come on with me, and she's like, no way. I think she was traumatized by being on the radio once, so that might be all she does. But maybe, you know,
I'm going to convince her.
Yeah, she needs to come on. She's very plugged in, very plugged in.
I know. I don't know. You know, yeah. I've had some. I don't like talking about my conversations with Lori because I know she's a very private type person. But I am very humbled by a lot of her knowledge.
Yeah, she's
very humble.
very well connected, and she's had some
Yeah.
pretty profound experiences herself.
Don't forget, she has fantastic hair too. Great. She's got great hair.
She does. She's a big reason for our success because of the connections, and also because she is a planner, project manager extraordinaire. So she's really good at coordinating and logistics, and that is huge for someone like me who can do that stuff but doesn't like to. So it's one less thing.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. She is so busy. I'm surprised she even sleeps. She's always traveling places, and I'm going to be honest with you. You know she's going to hate you and I for talking about her.
Oh, no one's listening though, right? Wink, wink.
Yeah. No one's listening on YouTube right now. Sorry, Lori. Just the way it goes sometimes.
Well, if she's listening, we should prompt her to drop a line and say hello.
Yeah, she should.
And if she does drop a line and say hello, we'll stop talking about her. There you go, Lori.
Yeah. You know, right now she's laughing at home with a glass of wine in her hand saying, "No effing way."
And I think she made I think it was macaroons for the first time, and they looked delicious. So she's probably kicked back, glass of wine, a few macaroons.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoying
I totally see it.
Chuckling.
Yeah. She's like, "Shut up already. Enough." And we're like, "No, it's not enough." No, Lori, it's not enough. I am having I apologize here if I look a little bit distracted. I am having a bunch of technical problems on my podcast side right now. My computer decided it didn't want to play the audio because I haven't updated to Windows 11 yet.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I'm waiting for that to go through.
But I have to tell you that Marvin the Martian hat is rocking.
You like that? I would give
awesome.
It to you. I would give it to you.
I have a hat that I got in Peru that it's like that similar style, obviously not Marvin the Martian. I should have worn it. We could have been solidarity wearing our hats tonight.
Beauty. I can honestly say to you that I have a lot of Marvin the Martian stuff. And I was, probably 10 years ago, I was walking through Walmart and I came across this and I was like, yeah, that's coming home with me. That is totally coming home with me. Just the way it is. Sometimes you got to do it.
Yeah. As a kid, I remember loving Marvin the Martian and Gizmo in the Flintstones. I loved Gizmo too.
Oh, I heard a really weird stat today. Today, it was calculated would be the date of conception of George Jetson.
Oh, wow.
Who will be born on August 27th, 2022.
Nice.
Yeah, how weird is that?
That is weird. As a kid, that was such a, peeking into the future was a big deal.
Oh,
as a kid in the late 60s, early 70s, that was something that it was like, that's what it's going to look like. I can't wait.
Tell me about it. Big thank you to Smithy, Phil, and Gong Show ×2 for the super chats. Here we go, everyone, with the second half hour. Bear with me here. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on the chat from J3 Films, Jon Sumple, and their new project, Extraordinary, The Revelations. And we're going to go back in history here, John, because the United States Department of National Intelligence earlier this summer literally told us that UFOs only started in 2004 with the Nimitz incident, and they've never, ever heard of anything like this before. Yet, your movie, which has now come out, The Revelations, states a little bit different, that this goes back beyond biblical times.
Yes. So we one of the things that we wanted to do is to explore the possibilities of extraterrestrials being here much earlier than 1947 or 2004. And based on record and historical record, so back in the, going back 30, 40, 50,000 years, there is documented cave paintings throughout the world in different locations where you have, that's a great little quote there from Pix. Awesome. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you jumping on there early, being one of the first to check out the film. We spread the word. Hopefully you enjoyed it. But get back to the history side. There are cave paintings all over the world where there are examples of cattle and hunts and rituals that don't show things that are too far away from what we might expect them to be. But then there are beings in images that scratch your head. What is that? And one of the things that was brought up on more than one occasion during our research and in talking with the people in the film was you have to take yourself into this mindset of the individuals who might have been capturing these images, whether it's cave paintings or through the Renaissance or through any oral history that had been passed on. They had no sense of the cosmos that we have today. So we have to kind of strip down what we would believe to be what the cosmos represents, how big it is, how vast it is, what else is out there. They only saw what they saw. And they drew what they saw. They documented what they saw. They had no context for it being something that was fantastic or extraterrestrial. They couldn't understand that. It was just part of what their existence was. So they documented what they saw. So we do have a history that dates back at least, 30, 40, 50,000 years with some of these cave paintings. And then you take through history, through through Egypt and through Greece and through Roman times, the different things that were documented. You look at Renaissance paintings. You look at things that happened here in the United States in the 1560 or the 16, 1700s that was documented. There were a lot of events and we couldn't, cover everything. So we wanted to, in a course of about a 5-6 minute intro to the film, talk about the historical relevance of sightings and documenting these things. And it makes you realize that there's been quite a bit that has happened that people had no context for. We now have that context that extraterrestrial could be a being from another planet, from another solar system, from another galaxy, could be interdimensional, things that they just said, we saw this, we documented it and moved on. It was a part of their life. They didn't think twice about it. We do, and we're worried about it, and we're wondering about it, and we're curious about it. But to sit there and say that 2004 is the beginning is about whitewashing history. And that's because the narrative is about the technology. We want to focus on UAPs, not UFOs. That's all little, little green men and flying saucers, and those, using phrases like that is condescending and ridiculing. So the military and governments are changing the narrative to UAP and technology and having conversations around that. And there's not a lot of focus on the sentient beings that might be behind the creation and controlling of these possibilities. So the one thing that I think that is important for us to say as we talk about the film is we don't know the answers. We don't know what's true. We don't know what's right. We don't know what's wrong because we don't have that evidence, that empirical evidence sitting in front of us that we can analyze in a public forum and have the conversation about what this is. So we can only, postulate and present possibilities and encourage people to come forward with their stories and share their experiences so that people who may have had experience realize that they aren't alone, that we can create community with that. And that's really what our intention is to have the conversation move from the fringes into the mainstream so that we can have intelligent conversations that focus around one simple premise: is what if this is true? What does that mean? What does that mean to the future of this planet? What does that mean to the infrastructures that have been created to guide and direct us, whether it's religion or politics? All of that's going to change. And that's the thing that we think is worthy of a conversation.
Going back in time on your film, it is mentioned by one of your guest speakers that, I'm trying to just get it correctly here, that we have to pay more attention to the hieroglyphics because back then they only painted what they saw.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it was a cow, a bear, fish, birds, there's no reason for hieroglyphics to get into what looks like aliens.
Right.
And yet here we are. I mean, that was such a profound statement. One of the statements that really stuck with me throughout your entire film, Extraordinary, The Revelations, which I believe can be found on Prime.
It's available on Amazon Prime, Xbox, Vudu, Vimeo, Google Play, iTunes, and Apple Plus.
Yeah. So, I mean, that really stuck with me. I think it was Billy Carson who said that. And now that I recall, and that just hit me. It really hit me that I never thought about it that way.
Well, that is one of those moments too that when you're doing the interviews and you're hearing those, and I think Mary Rodwell mentioned it. I think a couple of other people mentioned it during the course of the conversations that didn't make it into the film, is that they draw what they saw. They didn't create cattle that looked weird. They didn't create horses that looked weird. They documented what they saw in the style that they saw. So why were these other beings so much larger? Why were the heads larger? Why were the eyes larger? What was the reason for that? We don't know. Maybe there were rituals. But that's Martin Q. You need to get a VPN. Then you can take care of that. I just think sorry, I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
In regards to the hieroglyphic?
Yeah. So it's that, and there's the one flash that I'm sure everyone has seen before. We included in our film the vehicles, the helicopter, and the other that looks like a speeder out of Star Wars that is carved into stone thousands of years ago. Where did that come from? But I think the other thing that really made sense to me, and I thought it was important to talk about, is George Zervos talks about this. And George is a Greek Orthodox priest. He's been in academia for the last 20 years, and he is a student of the Bible. He looks at the Bible, both the Old and New Testament, from a analysis perspective and a historical analysis perspective. And one of the things that he wants to make sure that people understand is that, you have to put yourself in the mindset of the people of that era. So whether it's 40,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, what was their mindset? What did they believe? What were the conditions that formulated their belief structure? and understanding that religion played a big role in dictating the story that they wanted to control the masses. He talks about this. He's a priest, a Greek Orthodox priest, who says, when we talk about Greek and Norse and Roman and Egyptian mythology, it's no different than the mythology that has been created and fostered over the last 2,000 years surrounding Christianity. He says they're all mythologies. And that's something that I think is important to understand, is that what are the origins of those? Where did that come from? And if you look, you do a historical deep dive on the belief structures surrounding religion, it brings you back to pagan times, and pagan people worship nature and the stars and the sky and seasons. They everything revolved around what they could see. And if they were documenting things because they were there, they probably accepted them as part of their everyday existence. Something that we can't do right now. And for whatever reason, governments and control mechanisms have said, this is not important. This is something that you shouldn't be paying attention to. And there's a distraction or a desire to change the narrative, or, pushing something deep, or the worst thing that has happened over the course of the last 50, 60 years is ridiculing and destroying people as a result of their experiences. And that is just horrific.
It's amazing how many people are being called liars and fakers today over just talking about their experiences. I mean, you're in a real damned if you do, damned if you don't environment right now. Because if you only talk about your story verbally, people ask, where's your proof? Where's the camera?
Right.
Where's the video? Where's the audio? And then when you provide the audio or the video or the photographs, they say, oh, you made this up.
Right.
Like, you can't win today.
No. And I think there is this we've had this happen with us over the course of the 3 films that we've done, where people are looking for this empirical evidence. And why didn't you do this? Why didn't you ask these questions? Why didn't you, explore this further? Why didn't you divulge the proof that you needed in order? And if you don't have the proof, don't talk about it. Well, one of the things that came up through conversations with Dr. Jacobs and with Mary Rodwell was, why are we saying that we need more proof? Both of them got very upset when we had these conversations with them off camera. It's saying that we have, if you look at regression therapy, and you have thousands of people who have been regressed, and in just in Dr. Jacobs' work alone, and Bud Hopkins' work alone, and John Max, and there's hundreds of people who have been doing this work over the last 30 or 40 years. And the narrative that comes up from people who are not connected to each other in any way, shape, or form becomes similar. So when we start having corroborative stories, that is evidence. That is something that both Mary and Dr. Jacobs would say. How can we sit there and say we don't have evidence when we have stories that are corroborated over and over and over again from people on, the extreme, diversity in culture, in status, in career fields, just all over the place, that are corroborating experiences. Details are very, very similar. So why is that not being accepted as something that is accepted as something that is acceptable to say, okay, this is worthy of a further discussion or exploration? And it's unfortunate too much of it has been, seeded with, this is, people who are abducted or from, backwater areas, of the world, and, they're not very educated, and, they're fantastic in their storytelling. And well, there's tons of people who are professionals. There are tons of people who are very visible people. There are celebrities and politicians who have had experiences, who have talked about them, but they don't want to be public with them because of what that might do to their standing. But this is happening all over the world to people from every level of the stratosphere, as far as culture is concerned. And it's something that it's going to eventually make its way into a public dialogue because the public is demanding it.
But doesn't that also have to line up with the thoughts, the theories, and the idealisms of the military right now after they are flexing their muscle, because we can look at it that way, but in the end, somebody's going to call the shot.
Yes, yes and no. I think from a control perspective, that's a desire. But can the military control an expansion, a mind expansion? Can the military control an understanding of our experience dimensionally? I think that those are things that are evolutionary, and we talked about this a little bit in the previous film. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote a essay called Circles, and in this essay, what he talks about is that every time we learn something new, we expand our awareness, our field of knowledge, exponentially more questions come up. So whenever we start here, and then we get bigger and bigger and bigger in our awareness, but every time we expand that circle, there's much more to learn. There's so much more that's uncovered as a result of that. So if you think about how far we've come just in the 4 years since the big announcement was made in the New York Times about ATIP, so here we are today, and our knowledge has gotten to the point where we're much more accepting and much more tolerant and much more aware and open to more information. But where is that going to take us? That's the big question to me. Is I don't think this is about my personal perspective. I don't think this is about aliens. I think this is about origin. It's about the source. Where do we come from? Where do we go when we die? What is our purpose for being here? And if we all come from the same space dust, what's the big deal? I really think what will eventually be something that we're talking about in 10, 20, 30, 50 years, maybe 100 years from now, is interdimensional awareness and having the connection beyond what we see as a linear world, that we can exist in multiple dimensions, or we can travel through time dimensionally. Time is a linear construct, a man-made linear construct. It's not something that is, observed throughout the cosmos. It's our doing.
Consciousness. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. I think I do believe that the deeper we go in, I think the more we will learn on the journey, both individually and collectively.
Jon Sumple is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Extraordinary. The Revelations is continuing here. So we got about 5.5 minutes before we have to go to break at the top of the hour, John. So going back in history, were there any parts of this film that really kind of touched you where you were scratching your head like, oh, wow, I can't believe this. I've never seen this before. You got to be kidding me.
I think the ones that stood out to me the most isn't the things that we see the pictures of. It's not things from 1947 on. Those things I think are very well documented. They're on the internet for people to see. And I think when people do research about UFOs, that's their starting point. But I would encourage people to look further back and try to uncover things in Renaissance paintings. When you look at some of the paintings that are out there and they have men in flying craft, where did this come from? What was the mindset that said, let's put men in vehicles that are in the air and flying in the air, that don't look like, something out of a Leonardo da Vinci's drawing book. These are things that you kind of scratch your head and say, well, what are they? That's not to say that they are UFOs, but what was causing the mindset to portray things that seemed unrealistic during those times? And again, the biggest thing that I took from all of that was the mindset. If we can allow ourselves to think like somebody, think primitively, because all you have to do is go back 100 years, 200 years. You have to think in a different mindset to say, well, this is the way the world was then. We have a tendency to project what we know today upon any era that we go back to, and that you cannot do that. So you have no construct for what we know today in 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 10,000 years ago. So we have to kind of put ourselves a little bit more in a mindset of, this is something that cannot be explained based on what they knew during that time. And why was it so? Why were they so accepting of it? And I don't think there were people running around when they saw something in the sky going, "Oh my God, it's aliens! They're coming to take over the world." I think they looked at them with wonder and curiosity. It wasn't fear. I think it was more about, depending on what you believe, you might believe that they were coming here and giving us technology, or they were giving us, the blueprints for how to do things, or tools on how to create the things that needed to be created in order to advance society. These are fascinating things to ponder. And even if you're a skeptic, just to say, what if the origin of Homo sapien came from off this planet? What if that's the story? That's an interesting discussion. And I love having those types of discussions with people about the what ifs. What if this is true? What if this played out differently? What if we knew about UFOs back in the 40s? What would have happened? Would there have been panic and hysteria? Probably. So I think the governments of the world did the right thing in that time frame, and saying, let's keep a lid on this because it could create mass hysteria.
Very true. I mean, as we've said on this show a number of times, we don't know where this is going to go, John. We don't know how it's going to affect the religion on this planet, considering there's 5,000 deities to pray to as gods. Half the planet is religious one way or another. The population, not the planet, I should say. We don't know how this is going to affect stock markets around the world.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know. And that is something that I don't think a lot of people who are in the know, so to speak, are really looking into. If you go on UFO Twitter, they say, oh, everybody's ready. Everybody's ready for it.
Right.
But there are real implications and discussions that are going on about how this will affect everything.
Well, I had an interesting discussion a couple years back saying that this would make a really good documentary where we just went around to public officials around the world and asked them, what's your plan? What's your plan for when disclosure happens? And there's one of two answers, and either one is worthy of exploration. Well, we don't have a plan. Well, why wouldn't you? Don't you have plans in place for disasters? And if they were to hesitate, you would be like, oh, so you do have a plan. So what is your plan? And if you have a plan, why do you have a plan? So I think it would be an interesting discussion. Another interesting, I've been traveling over the last 3 years. I've been in Mexico, Ecuador, Peru, Chile, Argentina, in Scotland, and in South Africa. And one of the things during our travels, we do a lot of exploring of indigenous cultures. And one of the things that we have uncovered during my wife and I during our travels is that every single culture that we have visited and have had conversations about, I specifically ask, what do you think about the sky people? No one bats an eye. And most of the people that we've talked to are people from those specific cultures who say that there is either oral history or documented history within their cultures, might not be publicly known, but documented within their cultures, that this has been in existence for as far back as they can not necessarily remember, but document, or through oral history. But the oral history is a big part of it. And everybody that we spoke with, especially in Central and South America, there was no hesitation. Absolutely believed it 100%.
John, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. 1 hour down. We got Jon Sumple for another 90 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. Extraordinary, The Revelations. Amazon Prime's a great place to find it. Go check it out on Spaced Out Radio. Not right now, after the show. All right, bud, we're clear.
Okay. Good stuff.
So let me get rid of the commercial. You can't hear them, but I can. There we go. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, now's the time if you want to grab some water, take a bathroom break or whatever.
Yeah, let me get some more water.
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Sure. We got a few minutes here. Well, let's see here. Jeremy, when my board blew up, we're trying to work on it. For some reason, my radio DJ is not patching through to StreamYard right now. So, what's on my head? A toque is on my head, Shar. A toque. Zero, cool. Bash the Impaler. That's a great name change right there, buddy. Hey, David Lopez. How are you, buddy? By the way, we got new swag up on our store. If you haven't checked it out yet. Yep. We got Lip Blade t-shirts, Merle t-shirts. Let's show you the products here. Hold on. Let's get to it. Come on, where's my StreamYard? There it is. Share. All right. There we go. We got underwear. We got t-shirts. We got the Lip Blade right here. Look at that beautiful Lip Blade shirt. Select that option right there. Look at that, people. Look at that. If you got a power stash, that's the shirt you need right there. Beautiful. You want it in blue? There it is. There's the back with our logo and everything like that. Fab, you would look great in these. Just saying, you would look great in these. This is Fap right here. We don't show the head of his body, of his upper body, because it didn't fit on picture. That's pretty much what Fap looks like, modeling our underwear for us right there. And if you want a backside, there you go. Look at that. My chin hair breaks up. Isn't that beautiful? All right. Thanks, Ben at UFO Garage. We got El Ovni Volador right there. You could be a part of history by cheering on El Ovni Volador. I prefer the purple. All right. What else we got here? Got a great pair of, look at these. Look at these. SOR shoes right there. Look how good those look. I'm getting a pair of those. How cool are those, people? SOR shoes. So much more. Merle t-shirts. Ladies, how about this? Kira, you wanted a tank top? How's that? Immortal Being right there. Kira wanted tank tops, so we got tank tops. Uh-huh. Hold on one sec here. Let's see. Brazelhoff, how you doing? Yeah. Let's see. Who else do we got here? I had to catch up in the chat room here. You got aliens? Everyone's got aliens. Look at that. You got aliens too, right there, people. Right there. You can have your You've Got Aliens t-shirt. It looks good. So yeah, go to our website. Check it on out. spacedoutradio.com. We got good swag. Or if you're on our YouTube channel, you can just look on down on your channel. All our t-shirts are there as well. We've got about 90 seconds here, John.
Okay.
And I have 4% left on that computer to go. Yay. Yay. Oh, there's my radio DJ. That program right there is not hooking up with my StreamYard. My $2,500 mixing board blew up the other day. Uh-oh. It's a paperweight now. Hi, Ozzy Ange. You're looking lovely tonight. Oh, hey, Clam. No tank bottoms, buddy. No tank bottoms. Larry Schulte, if you're listening, I cannot find your email, and we don't have the Bigfoot pic. I think you wanted a Bigfoot shirt. We don't have that up. Go to our current store on our website, re-email me. I will order your show. If you get it to me by the show, the end of the show tonight, I will get you that shirt that I owe you sent out ASAP, like tonight. So if you're listening, Larry, do me that favor, email me your address and everything, and that way I can get it to you. All right. Chad Smith, do the same thing, because I want to get you one of the Chad Smith t-shirts. Hello. What am I missing here? I just had it. I swear. Oh, there. Body Tech, good morning to you. All right. Thank you to gorgeous Kira, Gong Show ×2, Phil, and Smithy for the amazing super chats. Gnome Squatch, good to see you. Sweet Tony D, nice to have you back. Good morning to you in the UK. Here we go, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Let's grab that for you now. Saprostomus. Saprostomus is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as a clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We have tonight Jon Sumple with us. He's with P3 Productions, J3 Films. This man is one of the co-creators of a great series called The Extraordinary. The latest in that series called Extraordinary, The Revelations, just came out today, or yesterday, pardon me. And we are glad to have Jon Sumple here with us tonight, breaking it all down. Jon, we're going to get into the experiencer side of everything here in this next little bit, and we'll also get to some audience questions as well. But for you, looking back at the experiencers, whether it's Mary Rodwell talking about it, or Richard Dolan talking about it, or Nick Pope, or anybody along those lines who is involved with this fantastic film, what did you learn personally from it all?
Well, the one thing that I learned more than anything working on this film is there's a lot of people out there that know a lot more about this than I do. And I think one of the goals of the film was to bring those people to the room and let them share what they know. And I learned the conviction of the individuals is very important. And I think one of the things that we hope to accomplish with the second act of the film, which focuses on the 3 different paradigms of ascension, colonization, and the biblical narrative, was that the people that present those, so Dr. Jacobs for the colonization, Mary Rodwell for the ascension, and L.A. Marzulli and Timothy Alberino for the biblical narrative, they're all extremely passionate about and convicted about what they believe. And they share it in a way where I don't want to say that they disregard the other ones. I think everybody is of the mindset is if something better comes along or something refutes what I've been led to believe or have explored and learned on my journey, then I'm okay with that. But where they are in their commitments for their specific paradigms is based on their experiences within them. So what we're hoping people will have as an experience in watching this film is if they're not quite sure what they believe, maybe this will be a catalyst to say, well, maybe I should explore this paradigm a little bit more because that resonates with me. And if we can get people to just do a little bit more research on some of the subjects that are discussed in this film, again, the collective consciousness and the awareness of this starts to escalate. And that is ultimately, I think, a good thing.
People who are experiencing this phenomena have had everything from the most horrific, nightmarish trauma to enlightening experiences to healing. I mean, we've seen a vast array of the kind of phenomena that is going on. There's no one kind, if we could put it that way. For you, going through this film and trying to bring out what it's like to be taken and have contact, so to speak, what were you trying to imply?
Well, what we've learned in the different conversations that we've had with people who are in the film, but also people that we interviewed and pre-screened before we selected who was going to be in our films. The one thing that I think that is important for us to focus on is their individual stories and what their experiences were to them and where that ultimately led them. So some people talk about their experiences initially being something that was horrific and it was frightening, and until they peel back the layers of the onion, and a lot of times that's required through regression therapy or even being in group forums where they have the opportunity to speak about what has happened to them, they slowly come to the realization that maybe they selected this path, this journey for this incarnation, and this is their job to do in this lifetime. Other people look at it as being something that was always benevolent and always something that was positive for them, and other people see it as something that's frightening. So I don't know which one of those is right. I do think it's perception and someone's ability to, I think, manage and understand what the best way to look at it is you were selected. And if you can eventually look at why you were selected for this or you chose this, then you can probably frame it in a positive way. But some people don't feel that way. And I think that until you truly understand what it is that happened to you, it is a frightening experience initially that with over time might be something that is much easier for the individual to handle. So seeing that people who, even if they've had the experience years ago or multiple experiences years ago, they may be at a point in time now where they can frame it in a way that makes it not as overwhelming or negative or frightening. So there is a way to get through that depending on where you are on your personal journey with this. And I don't know the answers to this, and that's not to say that everybody who's had an experience should go and be regressed, because that might be horrific for them because they'd have to go through that process again. I just think that depending on your paradigm of belief, you're going to have people who are going to say that, well, if you believe in love and light and ascension, that it's all positive and it's all here to help raise the vibration of the planet, then it's going to be great. I have not had an experience, so I have, it's not something that I can. So I'm responding to Kim. Personally, no, I have not had an abduction experience. I've had experiences where communication, when we were working on the first film, we did have experiences where we were contacted by what I don't know through electronic communications and conversations, and some of the things that were shared were only privy to people who were on the call. So it was one of those things that makes you scratch your head and going, who's listening out there?
When you do a film like this and you get deep into the experiences of people, how do you gain the trust of those who are experiencers to come out and tell their story? Because everybody's afraid to be made fun of or to be embarrassed.
So I think what's really important when you're doing something like that, because you have to spend time with the individuals and help them understand that what you're trying to do as a filmmaker is to serve their story. So when we were working on the second film, Even when we worked on the first film, it took us months of conversations and 2 visits to visit Stan Romanek before we got to a point where there was comfort level on both sides. With the second film, we had, I think about 50 or 60 different interviews with people pre-screening before we decided who was going to be in the film. And one of the things that we encountered there were some great stories that we didn't wind up using in the film for two reasons. One, they just didn't feel comfortable, or two, they weren't good storytellers of their specific experience, which we felt that was extremely important. We didn't want to put somebody into a situation where they felt uncomfortable or they were stressed or they struggled to tell their story. We wanted people who were comfortable sharing their story. So we spent a lot of time, hours and hours on the phone, separate meetings before we even sat down. And then during the interviews, we spend a good hour or two just asking, the basic questions, getting into it and creating this comfort zone that allows people to see that we're there to serve their story, not necessarily to advance our agenda. But we ran into people who said, I am very hesitant to go on camera because when I've done stuff like this before, excuse me, it's been manipulated and I come across as being somebody who is not telling their story, but serving the story of the people who are creating the program. And that is something that we have promised people, is that we're not here to advance our agenda. We're here to serve your individual stories. And I think with the first film, we did that. And then the second film, we definitely accomplished that. So much so that people have reached out to us and said, would you tell my story too? And not to say that we won't one day reach out to some of the people who've reached out to us, but we've been inundated with different personal stories that are quite amazing, but not necessarily something that would serve a standing film.
Nicole is asking, why do you think people have missing time? Something they want to hide from people? What's your thoughts on missing time?
I think missing time is, and this is something that we discussed in the first film, the second film, and not just briefly in the third film, is that there is the ability of extraterrestrials to put in screen memories. So something happens to you and you're basically not aware that it happened, and something is put there to kind of cover that so you don't have that traumatic experience. So numerous times we have talked with people who have had those, I think everybody has had that situation at some point, and I know there's a name for it, where all of a sudden you're driving and then you're like, oh wow, where did the last 2 miles go? How did I wind up here? I just was completely lost in thought, or it just I don't recall going through the exits or the stop signs or the stoplights and getting to this point where it's like, how did that happen? So there's something that might be, brain related activity with that. But some of the ones that are much longer, when you're talking about hours, and people can't explain why. One of the great stories that we had from the last film was there was these 2 individuals that were out on a hike, and they were wrapping up their hike, and the one of them said, hey, I got to go take a leak. I'll meet you back at the car. So he said he went to go to the bathroom and he saw two beings there. And he said it was kind of like shocking to see something like that. But then he just kind of was like, just as quickly as he saw them, it was gone, and he was confused. It's like, what happened? But he walks back to the car, and his buddy's standing, leaning on the hood of the car with 4 or 5 cigarettes on the ground that he's been smoking, waiting for him to come back. He's like, where the hell have you been? And I've been sitting here waiting for you for 45 minutes. You said you were going to take a leak. He's like, what do you mean? I just went to the bathroom and came right back. And he's like, no, dude, you've been gone for 45 minutes. And that's something where a lot of times when people have those experiences, they're either by themselves or there's somebody that's with them that has the same experience. But that was the first time that I had heard somebody say, I was with somebody who was waiting on me during that time that was missing. So I don't quite understand what it is, but I would say that a majority of the time, based on the research that we've done and the people that we've spoken to, there was an abduction that it happened during that time, and there was a screen memory that was put in place to help them deal with the trauma.
It kind of makes you wonder, right? Let's go to another question here. This one from Arlene. Are there any third world cultures that have had the stigma around UFOs, or is it only the power hungry first world cultures that have the stigma?
Well, one of the things that is talked about in the film is that this is not a U.S. phenomena. U.S. has a tendency to take center stage and make it an issue and want to do all the programming, things like that. But this phenomena is happening all over the world. It's happening to different races and different cultures. And what winds up percolating up to the top are the stories that are told. So there might be cultures where I've talked with people when we were in South Africa and was told that's just not something that you would talk about. If you had the experience, you would not go and talk about it. So that's not to say that it's across the board, but there was this feeling that in certain cultures that this is something that would not be acceptable to discuss. In the United States, I think in Mexico and a lot of the Asian countries, it is acceptable. European countries, it is acceptable to talk about it. There have been Freedom of Information Acts that have dumped tons of statistics and files on UFO research and reporting, so that there's much more awareness in some of these countries. But based on the research that we've done and the people that we've spoken to, both on the regression side as well as the experiencer side, this is a global phenomena. It's just more a matter of who talks about it that percolates up to the top.
Jon Sumple is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, talking about extraordinary, the revelations. And we have another question here coming in. Where did it go here, John? Please bear with me here. I'm trying to move through this chat room and it gets difficult in regards to it. All right. If extraterrestrials are benevolent, why would the experience, you think, be traumatic? From Nicole.
My response to that would be just put yourself in the shoes of the experiencer, and then put yourself in the shoes of the abduction party. So when you're abducting, it's no different than saying that, hey, I'm going to go out and tag a rhinoceros. I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to, sedate it. I'm going to put a tracking device on it, and then it's going to wake up and it's going to go off on its own. We do that all over this planet all the time. And is it traumatic for the animal that's having that event happening? Pretty much is. From the second they get hit by a dart, they're aware that they've just been hit by a dart. And I'm sure everyone has seen footage of animals when they're being tagged. Their initial reaction is to run, and they run until the sedation kicks in, and then they go down. And they're not aware of what happens during that time. They have missing time too. They could wake up in a completely different area. They could wake up in an operation room. They could wake up in a riverbed where they were left off. I'm not trying to belittle this. I'm trying to say that this is something that is common in what we do, and we're the superior beings on this planet when we're doing the research specifically to wildlife. So let's just extrapolate that out, saying that there is somebody else who's monitoring us and watching us and interested in how we act and how we procreate and how our DNA is structured, and they're just studying us. So it's really, I would say that it's no different than that. I wouldn't say that we're malevolent because we track and capture and monitor species on our planet. We're curious about them. We want to learn more about them. So I would put it into that perspective and try not to look at it from the humanistic point of view. Is like, how could they do this? How could they do this to us? I know that, my creative partner, Jack, would say it's a crime against humanity that they're doing this, that it's horrible that they would, capture someone against their will. But I would just look at it, try to frame it from, well, maybe they don't see it that way. Maybe their consciousness is not the same as ours. Maybe they are much more advanced and they don't see that what they're doing is wrong. So we have a tendency to project what we believe and what we're feeling. Therefore, our response to what they might be experiencing is from our own framework, as opposed to from somebody else who's looking at the situation from a different perspective, because we're studying animals. We're not out to hurt them. We're studying them. It might be very similar to what they're doing to us.
I think that's a very classical and understanding analogy of it. I mean, we may not like the answer, but that is the reality. You know, and it is still going on today in the 21st century with the way we're treating animals, just like you said. You know, we've got about 3.5 minutes before we have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Jon Sumple is our guest. Jon, moving on here, you know, with the experiential side of the revelations, do you look at the experiencer side as anecdotal evidence, or do you look at it as true evidence that needs to be studied further?
I think it's anecdotal in the sense that it's someone's personal account. But what becomes interesting is when shared information has corroborative elements to it, and then it becomes something that could be looked at more seriously. And there has been numerous regression work that has been done dating back to Bud Hopkins, John Mack, and David Jacobs, Mary Rodwell. The name of it's a long list of people who've done that work. And when you talk to the individual therapists who have done the work, Barbara Lamb and Yvonne Smith come to mind too, where they talk about the experiences of the people who have come to them and the corroboration of the storytelling, down to the details of what they see when they're on craft, down to, as Dr. Jacobs talks about in the film, is that, one of the things that kept coming up over and over again was, what my mission was going to be, when the ETs come. And he said one recurring theme was crowd control, that people were being assigned the responsibility of crowd control. He goes, why would that be something that was common and a recurring theme across a variety of different regression patients that he had worked with? Why would that be something that was discussed over and over and over again? That's when it becomes, in my opinion, it is anecdotal to the individual. But then when you have dozens of people, hundreds of people sharing something very similar, it becomes something that you could look at and say, there's a theme here. There's a thread that we need to pay attention to. And maybe we should not just do it from a regression therapy. We should do it from a more scientific study and say, what does this all mean? Where can we take it? How do we explore it further?
I think you're right. But how do we kick off that exploration?
Ooh, that's a good question. We had, all of a sudden, out of the blue, we have Space Force. So, maybe once we get through this transition, this, I would say, disclosure of technology, and we move a little bit more toward the humanistic components, that we might spend a little bit more time exploring that and say, hey, maybe we need to develop some sort of a structure that allows for a more of a scientific study into this, because we're aware that there is technology, but what about the sentient beings that have been controlling it?
Very true. The sentient beings. That's the big question mark. Mm-hmm. Sentient to us or sentient to the universe? We really don't know, Jon.
We do not. Thus, the great debate for anybody who is a skeptic versus somebody who is a believer. And I think that it's a worthwhile discussion just to explore it. And you don't have to believe. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to attack. You just need to listen and just have the conversation. And as long as it's a constructive conversation, I have no problem talking with anybody in what their belief structure is, because it's personal to them, and that's okay.
Right. Jon Sumple is here tonight from J3 Films, P3 Productions. Extraordinary. The Revelations is the film, can be found on Amazon Prime. It's a good one. We'll take more of your questions when we return for the second half of Spaced Out Radio right after this. Oh, my podcast audio is working again.
That's good.
Yeah. All right. I'm just going to take a quick bathroom break. I will be right back, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Let me see if I can get over to the YouTube on my phone. If we're, there we are. Okay, yeah, now I can see comments on YouTube. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them while we're on break. Thank you, Kira. I assume that that's the way that's pronounced. Thank you, Kira. I assume that that's the way that's pronounced. I'm watching you. Yeah, I can hear the echo too. I'm watching you. Yeah, I can hear the echo too. I'm watching. Pix, I'm not sure if I understand the question. Pix, I'm not sure if I understand the question. Eugene, I haven't spoken to Dr. Jacobs in a couple years, but I do know that his health has deteriorated a little bit. We had somebody that did speak with him from our production crew, and he acknowledged that he is. And I don't know if it's. I think it might be. He mentioned to us a few years back that he was pre Alzheimer's. He mentioned to us a few years back that he was pre Alzheimer's, early onset. But I'm not sure where he is in that spectrum. Early onset. But I'm not sure where he is in that spectrum. Sunsaver have not, but that's definitely something that I would like to do, and we have talked about doing some short films to start out.
All right, John, I am back.
I've been holding down the fort here. I've been answering questions on YouTube chat.
Oh, good. Well, that's good.
Other than the echo.
Yeah. I'll get you to turn your computer speaker down if you don't mind.
My speaker?
Yeah, I think you have your oh great, my audio is not working again.
Yeah,
Do you
I
have
wonder why
a
that's
YouTube
happening.
window open?
I do not. Oh, no, I don't.
Why all of a sudden are we getting an echo?
Why is that doing that? That hasn't been doing that the whole time, has it?
No, it just started. Weird.
That hasn't been doing that the whole time, has it?
No, it just started. Where am I getting this? Do we have any windows open?
Let me see. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that.
Weird.
I don't think it's doing it now. No, it is. Weird. I don't think it's doing it now. Is that thunder?
That is. Do you have your cell phone on?
Oh, that might be it. That's what it was.
We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, on TikTok right now at Spaced Out Radio. Jon Sumple's here. We're talking about Extraordinary, the Revelations. It is on for tonight, and you can watch this on Amazon Prime and many other downloadable movie areas. Jon, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. I'm just typing some notes here to folks in the chat. So there we go.
You go right ahead. You go right ahead. Oh, there's Jon Sumple right there. There he is. Look at that. Look at that. Jon, I want to ask you about, David Jacobs is a very highly controversial person because he comes from it believing that a lot of this ET contact is of negative consequences. And, there's a lot of people through, whether it's Dr. Edgar Mitchell's Free Foundation or others that have, are trying to, contradict that, saying it's not all about, bad aliens and demons and monsters. There is a different side to this. How do you find the balance between a personal opinion, because that's what his research shows, and what maybe a different consensus says?
Yeah, it's a delicate, I think, balance. And I think it's the choice that you make as a filmmaker, the story that you want to tell. And the one thing that I would say to people who don't like the way that we position something in a film is that's fine. That's okay. You're more than welcome to go and make your own film, with the angle that you so desire. But making films is not easy. It is, there's a significant cost involved that you have to raise money for in order to, one, make the film, to promote it, all the things that go into it. And I do understand that. And we have been challenged in the past by folks from the Edgar Mitchell side, in saying, our research has shown that it's not a negative experience at all. And that's okay. That's what their research shows. But we have talked to hundreds of people who have had traumatic experiences. And that's not to say that we only want to talk about those. And we do talk in this film specifically about the ascension narrative. And that is a very positive approach to this. So we wanted to show this contradiction in this film by having these three different paradigms exposed and juxtaposed with each other during the course of the film, so that people could see the conviction for the people who believe the specific narratives that they talk about. So I do understand that. I do see that there is a challenge to certain camps. Why didn't you talk about this? Why did you focus this in a negative light? When the trailer for this film came out, some people were like, well, this is all negative. And my response to that is, well, it's a trailer. The trailer is supposed to attract attention. I didn't see that it was all negative. I definitely felt that we told a story within the trailer that was the three acts of the film. But we used information that was specific to create awareness and stop people in their tracks, which is what a trailer is supposed to do. but I understand that. So if there's a narrative within a specific film that doesn't resonate, that's why some people will go to a movie and like, oh, that was the best movie I ever saw, and other people like, that was awful. I hated that movie. I couldn't stand that movie. Well, it's your preference, and I understand that people are going to come at any subject from what resonates with them and what they believe, what their belief structure is, and if you have no other perspective other than the one that you believe, if you're in that echo chamber, and I don't mean that in a negative way, it's just maybe you've never been exposed to something that was negative. But in having the conversations with Dr. Jacobs, we had numerous phone calls with him in addition to the interview that we did with him for the film. And he said, he even brought us up to his office when we were done with the interview and showed us his library of tapes, and they're all done on cassette tapes. And he had hundreds, if not thousands, of cassette tapes, and filed in a specific way where, you know, he knew where they all were. But just to see all of that information makes it real that he has done this work. And the great thing about him is that he does it. He doesn't charge anything for it because he doesn't want to have that type of, you know, it's like he's got an agenda. He doesn't have an agenda. He's like, I'm just going through the process that I've learned from my mentors and applying that to the regression therapy that I do. Some people have issues with regression therapy, saying that there's leading questions and that you're going to get the results that you want based on your line of questioning and what your filters are going into it. Possibly. But I think that when you have someone who has been doing the work that some of these prominent people have done, and they share corroborative evidence, not only within the people that they've regressed, but when they share their stories and their findings with people who've done regressions using their own techniques, they're getting corroborative evidence. So I think that it's something that is worthy of paying attention to, whether it's something positive or whether it's something negative. I think it just depends on where you're coming from and what information you're bringing into the conversation. But to say that it's all malevolent or all benevolent is not true, because it's both.
It very much is both. And, you know, as an experiencer myself, I know I've had the good, I've had the bad, and I've had the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have run the gamut of everything. When you get taken, you do not know what is going to be happening to you at that time. And
Right.
that is the difficulty of saying it's all peace, love, and light and downloads comparatively to genetic surgery on your eyes, or for women,
Right.
their ovaries, or you know, the prostate for men.
Right. Well, just think about, I mean, let's use the animal analogy again. When animals are out in the wild and all of a sudden they get hit with a tranquilizer dart, their immediate response is one of panic and fear. So they're off running until the tranquilizer takes effect. Then you take the animals that are in zoos. And the animals that are in zoos, if you've ever been to a zoo during feeding time, you see all the animals run over to the caretakers, and they get their food and they're programmed. They're aware of that. They're probably aware when they're going to have a checkup, just like we are. But when all of a sudden you're abducted, you're not planning for that. An animal in the wild is not planning for that. We as individuals aren't planning, going like, oh, when I go to bed tonight, I'm going to be abducted. I know it. It's usually something that is completely unexpected. But if you're in a conditioned environment, like the animals that are in the zoo, they have an expectation that something is going to happen. And there are people, I think, who have been abducted numerous times that have an awareness around the times where it might happen, or they might have like this feeling. People who, not everyone is asleep when they're abducted. Some people are, you know, talk with people like they felt like something was going to happen, and with a matter of seconds, minutes, it did. So, and that might not be a first time abduction experience. I think that a lot of the people who have been through it numerous times have an awareness that something might be happening, and they're probably more prepared for it and might have a different perspective versus somebody who's having it happen to them for the first time.
And that's the big reasoning for that. But I think with anything, though, a lot of times, we're only human. We tend to lean towards our own belief in our research.
Hmm.
And I think that, as much as maybe Dr. Dave Jacobs was trying to keep it down the path, I think he just saw so much of the negative that's the way he's kind of leaning down, the way his image perceives him.
Yes. Yeah, and there when we talked to Mary Rodwell, Richard Dolan, and a lot of the people that we interviewed, we asked the same questions as it pertained to the different paradigms, because we wanted their take. We wanted to see how they would respond. When somebody, so Richard talks about it. I'm more from I take a historical perspective, and he said I have a tendency to lean a little bit more towards the work that Dr. Jacobs has done, based on the fact of how he's done it and the information that he has gleaned over the course of 20, 30 or 30, 40 years of doing this. And he said, I see the love and light and ascension crowd and the biblical as being two sides of the same coin, and that they're very, very similar because they're based in faith. They're all based in this belief of faith. They believe that this is what's going to happen, and therefore this is what's going to happen, and there's no challenging. So faith I think plays a big part of the belief structure around this. And if you believe it, it's because something is profound, most likely, has happened to you, or that your curiosity is piqued based on something that you read, saw, experienced, that you want to learn more about it. Then there's the people who, like, I've talked with PhDs who have seen our films, and they're like, yeah, it's a great story. It's very well done, but there's no empirical evidence. And without empirical evidence, you're not moving the needle at all with people like that. And as Mary Rodwell says in the film, he said, if an alien landed on their front yard, they would say it's a fire truck, because they don't want to believe. It's not in their mindset.
And that's the big one right there. There's a big difference in the skepticism and the disbelievers and the crowd that no matter what you say, you're not going to be bought at any words that come out of your mouth. And that's the difficulty of it all.
Yeah, one of the things that was, I had this thought process going into the film as we were planning to make it, and we knew how very different each one of the paradigms were, and we knew that the people who believed in these individual paradigms were very convicted and most likely did not see a lot of credence in the other two. And one of the we don't really come out and talk about this in the film, but it was something that was in the back of my mind as we were going through the process of post-production, was that this is no different than the way that people from religious beliefs or from their political beliefs, regardless of where you are on the planet, you believe what you believe and you're convicted in that belief. But the bottom line is that, just like with these three paradigms, they all believe in lights in the sky, beings controlling those craft, abductions. They believe in all the same things. It's no different than somebody saying in the United States that, well, we're all U.S. citizens, regardless of whether or not I believe in extreme right or extreme left or moderate, political beliefs or religious beliefs, but we're all still within the same country. I like to look at it as we're not only from the same hometown, but from the same state, from the same quadrant of the country that we're in, from the same country, from the same continent, from the same planet. If we're all from the same planet, why are we spending so much time tearing down, what's right, what's wrong, who's right, who's wrong? We're all in this together. And I come from the mindset that we're all from space dust and we're all going to go back to space dust. We all come from the same origin. So if we all come from the same origin, whatever that source of energy is, we're all the same. We all come from the same place and we probably all go to the same place. Therefore, we're all galactic citizens. Let's act that way.
Yeah, it sounds so beautiful, but so far-fetched at the same time.
I think I like to look at it in a much bigger perspective, and I look at it more from the mindset of, okay, so this is what we know. As of this moment in time, this is what we know. But what we don't know is probably much more worthy of exploration versus what we do know. And maybe 25 years from now, quantum physics will be as common as taking chemistry in high school, that everybody takes it because we'll have a much better understanding of who we are and why we're here and how we're connected and what the energy fields are, all of that stuff. We'll have a much better understanding because we're allowing ourselves to go there. So the more we know, the more we learn, the more we understand that, we're not just in a three-dimensional existence, that it's a multi-dimensional existence. I think that those are the type of things that having an alien land on your front yard is one thing, but having the ability to interdimensionally act and move about the cosmos, that is mind-blowing to people. That's probably more mind-blowing. Some people would probably say, I'd be okay with seeing an alien than I would be saying, hey, I can go and travel through 10 different dimensions simultaneously and witness all these different things. That, I think, is probably more of a mind-blowing concept to people than the idea of some being from another planet coming down and landing on their front yard. But we don't know what we don't know. So I kind of am more curious about the what we don't know than the what we do know. And I had somebody pose this question to me. He was saying that he had a friend that when they were at gatherings, he would ask these people just bizarre questions. And one of the questions he said that he asked at this one event, he said, so everybody, sitting around the dinner table here, if a UFO landed in a field in front of you and you had the opportunity to get on board the craft and go with them, but you couldn't tell anybody and you wouldn't return, would you go? You'd have to make the decision at that moment and go. And I didn't even hesitate. I'm saying, absolutely, I would go in a heartbeat, because I would learn more about what I don't know versus trying to dig in and hold the trenches on what I do know. I'm more interested in where do we go from here?
I'm with you. Come pick me up. The way this planet's going to all hell in a handbasket, come grab me. I'm going with you, John.
And when I answered that question in front of my wife, she looked at me like, "What? You would go?" And I said, "It's much bigger than this. It's like Richard Dreyfuss at the end of Close Encounters. He goes.
You gotta go. You gotta go. I mean, I fully agree with you on that. And I think for me, if that decision were to come up, I would have some hesitancy only because of my little guy. My little guy is 8, but I mean, my daughter is 22. My stepdaughter is 18. My partner can collect the life insurance. It's all good. Just go.
But it's the curiosity. It's that desire to, not to say that I'm bored with the earthbound existence. I don't think that that's the case at all. But it's the opportunity to see something much bigger, something more. And the way that the question was posed, it wasn't about an abduction. It was about a choice. It was like you had the choice. You could have said, "No, I'm going to stay here. Thanks for dropping by." But instead, you're given the choice. You can come with us. It's a conscious decision. And to me, I would be curious to see what I would want to learn more about what I don't know. Push the boundaries.
I would just hope in that situation, John, that whatever alien species took you just didn't lock you in some type of jail cell, that you could actually meander around the ship and look at where you're going and what it's all about, and ask questions and be curious, because I mean, we're all going to have a million questions, much like a 5-year-old does driving down the highway. You know what I'm saying? Sure.
But that is a great point that you just made. Let's do that now. Let's do that now. Let's be the 5-year-old. Let's ask those stupid questions. and not be afraid to ask a question that someone might look at you and go, why would you ask that? Because you would never turn to a 5-year-old and say, why would you ask that? Why would you ask me why the windows roll down when I push a button? Why would you ask? You would never do that. You would explain it to them.
Oh, damn right, we would explain it to them.
Right.
You know, but I think when it comes to the whole extraterrestrial phenomena is what we don't know. There could be people in power who do know.
Mhm.
We don't know what Lou Elizondo knows. We don't know what Harry Reid knows. We don't know what Chris Mellon knows. We don't know what the United States Navy or the CIA or the NRO knows. We don't know that. And, you know, could you imagine the uproar if Lou Elizondo actually came out and said, I'm an experiencer? Now, I don't know if he is or not. I'm assuming he is, to be on the woo desk that he was. But
Yeah,
can you imagine?
Yeah, well, I think even more so is the uproar that would come when there is an announcement made saying, so what about the trauma that's been caused to all these people who have been experiencers over the last 70 years? What are you going to do about them? What about all the people who have been taken advantage of in the military for the, you know, the military agenda? You know, we have 3 people in the film who are 2 of them I would say are whistleblowers, and Clifford Stone and Dan Sherman, and Lynn Buchanan is also in there. And Lynn talks about it not necessarily from a whistleblower, but that he had been asked by government officials and military officials, hey, can you do some remote reading on this whole UFO phenomena? Off the record. They weren't done as official requests. They were done off the record. And as he says in the film, if a 3-star general asks you if you can do a reading, what are you going to say? No. He says, you do the reading. So, you know, when you have these people that are talking to you about, in Clifford and Dan Sherman's case, they were both like predetermined. They were, you would say they were genetic experiments, because they had handlers, they had people who were watching them. They were intended from birth to be someone who would interact with alien species at some point in their lives. And both of them were in the military, and both of them were tapped on the shoulder and said, you're going to play this role within the military to help us with, you know, in Clifford's case, it was crash site retrieval. And in Dan Sherman's case, it was communicating with extraterrestrial beings. But they were used by the government from day one. All of them were.
It's hard to believe that we are at that situation, because I think that's part of the argument that we're all having is, what does the government know? What about, and you know, opening up, like I said earlier, opening up that UFO Pandora's box would also include my labs.
Yes. Yeah. And that's horrific to even think that the government has been involved.
Do you think they have?
I have not explored enough. My source of information is Melinda, and I've talked with her a little bit, scratched the surface a little bit, but I have not done a deep enough dive. But I've you know, and Naira Isley too had mentioned that she had a situation where there were military personnel in the room for one of her abductions, which is just, I don't get that. That's tough. That's a tough one. That's probably its own documentary and one that would be extremely controversial and potentially could get, you know, quashed by the government. You know, there could be some, you know, because that's almost like a direct attack. And I think I've never felt like, you know, we've been in a position where we could be threatened by what we're doing, because we're just telling stories. We're telling other people's stories. We're not pursuing an outcome. We're not pushing buttons. We're not, you know, going someplace that we shouldn't be going in the films that we've made so far.
On that note, we have Jon Sumple for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio, where we are going to continue talking about Extraordinary, The Revelations, a brand new documentary which can be found on Amazon and other streaming sites. Make sure you check it on out. They're very well crafted, well filmed, and well done. It's the way it's supposed to be. Jon Sumple, until the bottom of the hour, and Fedora John coming in with the UFO report right after on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear.
Good. So you watched the film. So what was
Yes.
your impression? You can be honest.
I loved it. I'm going to be honest with you. I loved it. I'm also going to be honest with you and say that it would be really, really nice to see some unfamiliar faces.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we felt like we accomplished that with the last film because we had some new faces. Geraldine at the time was a new face. Rob Fullington was a new face. April was a new face. All the people that were the primary people that were in that film were new. They were we wanted to bring, the next door neighbor, the person that you work with on screen, as opposed to people that have been kind of regulars before. And I think one of the reasons why we chose to have the folks that we had in there is because we felt we needed a certain level of authority in this film for it to be taken seriously. Now, that's not to mean that there aren't other people that we could have done that with. There are, and there were other people that we reached out to that either declined or didn't get back to us. So, we're fortunate enough that we've formulated really good relationships with the folks that are in the films that we've had, and having somebody like Richard Dolan is a good thing because of his knowledge and historical perspective that he brings is important. I thought Billy Carson for us was a new face, and his level of knowledge in what he knows from a historical perspective is mind-blowing.
Yeah, let me explain. I don't think you chose the wrong cast of people, but there are certain people that carry over. Okay, Richard Dolan, I would say, is a carryover. I mean, if I were to put a documentary together, I would want Dolan there. You know what I'm saying? He's a commanding authority. I think, though, for a lot of people, when you look at the list, I will be honest with you. I was very happy to see Vivienne Chauvet on there. I think she is a very under, what's the word I'm looking for? Under the radar type of person. But for a lot of them, though, and I'm saying this, I love Melinda. Melinda's amazing. She's a good friend of mine. But how many documentaries do we have to see Melinda on? And Billy Carson is kind of going along that route too. And everybody outside of you is choosing the same people. So I don't mean that to sound insultive or anything like that,
No, I understand.
But for me, being in this community, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask that, because I like new faces. Yep.
Yeah, well, we felt like we brought a few, like George Zervos was a new face, Timothy Alberino, even though he's been around, he's not been in a lot of projects outside of his own. So that was a relatively a new face. But we knew that we needed to sprinkle in some new blood and
that was
also
good.
have. Yeah. And we, there are people who we know that when part of making a film is getting good storytellers and having people who are really good. Nick Pope, the interview with Nick is a consummate professional. He's one of those people who, when you ask him a question, knows how to phrase the response. If he screws up, he pauses and restate. He was a pro. So obviously he's done this numerous times before. But when we interviewed Nick, what I thought was great about it was at the end of the interview, and we interviewed him for about 2.5, 3 hours, he said, this was one of the best interviews I've ever had. And he said, and the reason why is because you weren't just asking questions. You were engaged in a conversation, and you were asking really good questions based on what I was saying, as opposed to going through your list of questions. And he said, I really appreciate the fact that this wasn't an interview. It was, you were basically capturing a conversation, and it was a really good conversation. So I look at that as we got something, I felt, from Nick very different than what other television shows have gotten from Nick. And I've seen him, and he looks like a performer in a lot of times because he's done it so many times. And being somebody in the military or in the government, he had to play that role too. So he knows it very well. But I felt like we went a couple layers deep with him and covered some things that he normally doesn't cover.
No, I thought he was solid. I still want to know how much I could stick to his Velcro hair, though. I do want to. I will say that. Um, I, yeah, that's just my bad humor there. My bad.
It is
humor.
perfectly coiffed hair.
Yes, yes, perfectly. Unlike this mess. No, you know what? I have enjoyed all three. I think they bring a sense of professionalism that is unattainable by a lot of other people doing documentaries on this film or on these subjects.
Mhm.
I think the other ones, there's always a little bit of hokiness that goes
Right.
along with them, or they're trying to play so hard against the grain and that it really ruins the entire meaning of the film or
Mhm.
documentary. And you guys just do it right. You do it
Yeah.
right. And I
Yeah.
also know that you do it right because, as we got about 20 seconds here, because otherwise Lori Wagner wouldn't be involved.
That's true.
All right. All right, my friend. Hold on one second. We're going to get going here.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Saprostamus. Saprostamus is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. For the final time tonight from J3 Films, P3 Production, or not P3 Productions, I apologize. J3 Films, Jon Sumple is here tonight. Brand new film just released on Amazon Prime and other streaming services called Extraordinary, The Revelations. It's part 3 of a series that goes back a few years. And John, once again, incredible professionalism regarding your documentary series. You got to be congratulated for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. We definitely wanted to take a little bit of a different approach in our storytelling and not, because one of the things that, and part of this has to do with what I had mentioned earlier, is that I'm not like a dyed in the wool follower for decades. It's something that came to me as, would you be interested in doing a story on this subject matter? And as a storyteller, I was like, yeah, this sounds fascinating. I'd like to get into it. But as a result of that, I wanted to step back and look at it from a different perspective, and from wonder, as opposed to I have an agenda. I have a story that I want to tell. It's not so much about that. It's more about the story of the individuals or the story of the people who have the expertise. I'm not the expert. I'm the much better filmmaker when I surround myself with brilliance and let those people shine. And our responsibility is to make sure that we bring those people to the forefront, and that we give them the opportunity to sparkle, and then we polish that up and make it into a compelling story. And that's a big part of it. Entertaining and engaging is very, very important, and that's one of the tenets that we focus on, is that we want to create content that is both engaging, entertaining, and educational.
You mentioned that you had a number of whistleblowers in the Revelations, And this is something that I believe we're going to see more of coming into the future as people start to grow very comfortable in talking about this subject publicly. Why is it important to get these retired military whistleblowers on camera?
Well, I think it serves a couple of purposes, and the primary purpose is, as it to me, is it encourages others to follow suit, and that it's okay to tell your story. Some people are frightened to do it, and some take their oath of confidence very seriously, and they will not break that. So I do understand that, but I think that what it's doing is it's paving the way for other people to tell their stories, and by having this growing list of storytelling about personal experiences in the military or in government is going to only, I guess, desaturate the fear. It's going to create a better awareness. What if it was as simple as they're here to help, or they wanted to study us and they would give us technology in return? Depending on what your abduction experience is, you might say that's not a really cool trade because I've been used as a lab rat, really don't like that. But what if it was to help? What if it was to be here to guide us through a difficult time? Or what if they're aware that something's going to happen to the planet and they're just preparing for us for this next evolution of what that might. So, I'm just throwing those things out there is because we don't know. So what if it is all those things? What if it is something that is ultimately a positive, but we have a tendency to look at it more from a nefarious or from a us versus them, enemy versus, the state type of thing. And we have a tendency to create those, polar opposites, the blacks and the whites, and to look at it from a combative perspective. That's a U.S. thing for sure. Is that we're here to we're number one, and no one else will beat us, type of thing.
Oh, I know that feeling because we're all that way in Canada here, totally that way. No, please note the sarcasm once again on that. But I believe you're right, and it does take a lot of skill. It does take a lot of strength and personal conviction in order to come out and become something of a whistleblower. No, it's a title nobody really wants, but once they see the love and support of the field of the community, they feel like they have an army behind them. Like Lou Elizondo has stated to me and others, that he had no idea how many people would be out there supporting his cause.
Right.
And so, and when he needed picking up, it was the public that was there to straighten his back out.
Yeah, and I think it's that environment is exponentially further down the road now than it was 5 years ago. So there's much more of a willingness to accept new information, to encourage more sharing. I think that there's been polls that have been done over the course of the last 20 years or so about how many people believe, and it's more than 50% of people believe that this is true. So why, like we talked about earlier, I don't think everybody completely understands what the potential ramifications could be to the infrastructure of the planet if all of a sudden religious and leadership and control mechanisms that have been in place for millennia are all of a sudden destroyed overnight through something like that. Or I shouldn't say destroyed, they're going to evolve. I mean, we just have to look at science fiction books and TV shows and films to say, well, look at how they all get along. Everything looks fine. We just have to go through the evolution of saying that we're now part of a galactic, federation as opposed to a planetary one.
Very true. Do you see a day when we have a lot more fighter pilots or even astronauts coming out and saying, I want to talk about this. I want to be a part of the new solution in the new world?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think I think that's where we're going to, disclosure will be a slow drip. I don't think it's going to be an announcement. I think it's going to be a slow drip that when we look back on it, we're going to be like, oh yeah, it happened over the course of 20 years or 30 years. It's going to be something that is going to be evolutionary. And I think it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's not going to be a revolution. It is not. It's going to be evolutionary, my opinion. And I think that you're going to have people who are going to see this as an opportunity to say, let's take this perspective because it ultimately serves us if we look at it from this point of view, whether that's through technology, I mean, look where we're going. We're talking about a low orbit tourism. We're talking about going to the moon and Mars, and we're used to it from the earthbound construct of linear travel. So everything that we look at is straight line. How do we get, from point A to point Z? And it's through time, and time is tracked in the conventions of time that we've established. But what if, and there is new physics that says that we could bend space-time that allows us to travel from point A to point Z instantaneously rather than across light years. So when do we get to that part of the conversation? When does that information start moving its way into the collective consciousness? And the curiosity is that as more people are exposed to those things, they're going to want to explore those. So I would hope that as we evolve, that more and more people are going to want to pick up that torch and say, I want to be a part of that evolution. So let me be, one talking about it. Pilots talk about this stuff all the time, but do they do it on the public record? Not necessarily, but, where are they in their careers? Maybe we should establish a pathway for retired individuals in aviation, astronomy, military, government to say, now's the time to start telling your story. And more people are doing it. They're just not fearful of the retribution that may come their way.
And that's the trouble. What's the retribution?
Yeah. Right.
Even if you don't break your NDAs, your non-disclosure agreements, what is the repercussions of your actions?
Right. Well, it's reputation, a lot of that. And I think a lot of people look at it from, the friends and family perspective is, what is this going to do to my family? If I go out and start sharing something like this, it's going to change the way things are. So it is a very, I think it's less tenuous now than it was 10 years ago, but it's still something that we're going through the process of preparing for more people having the willingness, the latitude to share their stories. There's a whole other side of the equation is that the government's going to silence anybody that they want if they don't want them talking. And that's an unfortunate geopolitical issue that just still exists in the world today. If someone steps out of line, they could be silenced. And I don't think that we're in that space necessarily with the UFO phenomena. I think that there's enough information that's being leaked by the government. The fact that things that have been shared over the last 5 years could very easily have been covered up, and they didn't do that. They chose to continue to talk about it. Why? There's a reason.
Well, I mean, is the government still in the shutting up game? Because, I mean, if you look at Elizondo and Mellon, they still are technically contracted by the United States government, even though they're speaking against the government in this way. I mean, I could see it in the 80s, 90s, 70s, and previous. But now, is government still in that game?
Well, it depends on and what. Maybe not in the UFO space, but it's still happening. These things are happening. Between countries. You just look at some of the things that's happened in Russia and trying to silence people, and there's always going to be war games, and confidential information that needs to be kept top secret or above top secret. But it's more a matter of, I think, it doesn't have to be a grand revelation. It could be, dripping water on the stone. And the reason why we named this film The Revelations is because there's a lot of little things that when you put them together add up to something that is more of an aha. So it's not some grand revelation at the end of the film. It's more a matter of, if you put all of these things together collectively, it's a much bigger aha than it would be if it's just one of those all by themselves.
All right. A quick question here from Nicola. What do you think of the Galileo project?
I'm not sure I know what that is.
That's Avi Loeb from Harvard putting together the dream team to go look into space to try and find UFOs and other civilizations.
Anything that is along the lines of exploring beyond what we're currently doing, I think is a positive thing. But I don't think it necessarily has to just be space. It could be physics. It could be consciousness. It could be as simple as meditation and truly silencing, the chatter to connect with your essence, and it could be all of those things. I think it's interdimensional. I think that we can look into space. Obviously, that's a good starting point. And I think by looking into space, we realize how vast it is and how ridiculous it is to think that we're alone. In how big the universe is. Most people don't have the bandwidth to really comprehend how massive this and expansive the universe is, and how many trillions of stars there are. And there's bound to be numerous hundreds of thousands of likely candidates for a life form throughout the universe. And to think that we're alone is, to me, my personal belief is very short-sighted and very comforting if you don't want to push that envelope, because you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to fear it. I would rather explore it and find out what else is out there versus just sitting here and saying I'm okay with the way the status quo.
What's next for you and the crew of J3 Films in the extraordinary? Are you done after this? Are you going to continue going on?
We will most likely keep extraordinary as a kind of moniker for our films. Not to say that we won't deviate away from that from time to time. I think part of being a nights and weekend filmmaker, we're not this is not our full-time jobs by any means. We all make a living doing something completely different, but this is something that we come together for because we're passionate about storytelling and want to tell good stories and create content that is educational. So I think from that point of view, we'll always be looking for stories like that. The ufology subject matter and paranormal and unexplained mysteries, there's just so much information. The coffers are rich with stories that can be told through documentary storytelling. We also have some projects that are outside of that space that have come to us that are very, very interesting. We're exploring a project right now that is based on a book. I don't want to go into any details yet because it's not fully cooked yet, but it's outside of the world of ufology, but it's a significant story that people would definitely be interested in. So as that unfolds, we'll share more, but there are several. We have at least, I would say, 7 or 8 different projects that are in various stages of a development, whether it's just a list of story ideas on a piece of paper, all the way to things where we put together synopsis and we're pitching those ideas to sales agents and to distributors.
Good for you. Good for you. Because, I mean, I don't know how much profit or anything is made in this, but if it's anything like television, it really shows that the audience really does care about this product and they want more. They're yearning for more.
Yeah, I completely agree. And people who I'd say this whenever I have the opportunity to, because sometimes people's response when they hear that they have to pay for this, they get frustrated. It's like, well, if this is so important, it should be free. Well, when was the last time you went to a free film? You know, a movie that was made just for free, unless it was funded by, some grant money. The chances are you've got to pay somebody back, and every penny that we make initially goes back to paying the loans that we take out in order to fund the film. So sometimes there's advance money, there's finishing funds, there's not investing. We don't have investors. We have people who loan us money and we pay them back. And so in order to get a film done, you need money, and until you pay off all that debt, you don't see any of it. So when we make films, we don't see any of the money for a couple of years down the road. So and then it starts trickling in after that. So there's no windfall. This is about being passionate storytellers and wanting to do good work. That's what really drives us. That's, to me, when the film is finished, that's my satisfaction. And I know Patrick Lomentini, the editor, feels the same way. It's like, we've done the work. The heavy lifting is done when we say this is shipping off to the distributor. We're very happy at that point because the work is done. The project is done.
For you, as we got about 3.5 minutes here before we got to wrap up, what story do you want to tell in the UFO world or the cryptid world?
Wow. There's, I think, one story that would be worthy of exploration is the crossover between paranormal and UFOs and extraterrestrials and interdimensional components of it. That would be a very interesting story to get the right people with the right information. And I don't know if we're to a point where if it would be believable, because there's more. I shouldn't say that. We haven't done the research in it, but it is something that we have talked about, that would be a very interesting story, is to explore the crossover, because we have talked to people who have had experiences that are, on the surface paranormal, but there's extraterrestrial components to it as well. So that, I find that very interesting.
I got sent a photo tonight during this show of a paranormal investigator who caught a photo of a 6-foot alien gray standing in a window.
Wow. Yes, there is definitely crossover there.
Huge. If you're ever looking for that, I'm going to tell you right now, it starts with a gentleman named David Weatherly.
Okay. Great.
David Weatherly, in my opinion, is probably the top person in North America when it comes to investigating the crossover between all the phenomena. He is brilliant. He's based out of Las Vegas, so he's a West Coast guy for you.
Okay, great.
And he wears a top hat. You never go wrong with anybody who wears a top hat.
That's awesome. That's great. I love it. One thing real quick before we wrap up here, I want to thank Jamie Sernoff, Jack Roth, Lori Wagner, Patrick Lomentini, Ray Cerna, Anton Patzner, my son, who does the closing credit song. He's done it for all three. There's a whole list of other people that have been involved in our projects that have helped us on this journey, and it's couldn't do it without them. I mean, it's very, very important to have a crew of people that you trust. But I do want to put a huge shout out to Anton Patzner, who does the scores for our films. And this one, like the last one, was wall-to-wall sound. He did the music from the very beginning to the very end. I don't think there's a pause other than maybe a couple of seconds here and a couple of seconds there where you're not hearing some sort of music or sound effect or sounds that he created to create effects. It's just phenomenal. And with this film, we're also having a soundtrack that is made available. I don't have the links for it, but I do know that it went live as of, I believe, today. So if you were to look for that, if you like the music in the film, the soundtrack is something that you could definitely check out and listen to as background music, or I think it's going to be on all the major platforms as well for streaming music.
Wonderful. Jon Sumple from J3 Films. Once again, my friend, a great, great interview with you. And I am so excited for whatever new projects you have coming up after this, man. You're one of the best out there. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll do it again sometime soon. Okay.
Anytime you want, buddy. Anytime.
Okay.
When Lori calls, do you really think that I'm going to say no? Never.
No.
Exactly.
And great participation with the folks in the chat. It's a great crowd of people that follow and listen to your show.
Yeah, they're amazing. They are amazing. That is for sure. But yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it, buddy. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Okay.
Good night. Jon Sumple, everybody. What a great guy. And what a talent when it comes to all of this, man. What a talent. Should be illegal. Should be illegal. And thank you, Lori Wagner. I know you're still listening. Thank you, my dear. I love you. And another great interview lined up with Jon. And it's always great. It's always great. So, mwah, to you, Lori Wagner. Love you. And you're one of the best. Really are. We're just waiting for Fedora John to join us. I wonder, I'm going to try something here. Hold on. Share screen. All right. Let's see if we can get some. No. Tell me if you guys hear this. Do you hear that? Can you hear that playing in the background? Very, very low. That would be from my headphones. Okay. Let's try something else here. Okay. Just experimenting, trying to figure it on out. There he is.
What's up, buddy?
The fedora wearing John Hudson.
How you doing tonight, sir?
I got a screwdriver.
That can't be a good sign.
No, I found it on my desk. But I didn't realize that there was like 4 screwdrivers in here.
I'm kind of amazed you have one screwdriver in there, Dave. I didn't get the impression you're terribly handy.
No, I'm not handy at all. But if I unscrew this, I have one there. There's 2. And then unscrew that again. There's number 3. But wait, there's more. I unscrew this again. And there's number 4 right there.
And somewhere in the universe, there's a little product manager that just got his wings. I think one of the best inventions ever is I have a screwdriver, we'll pull it later, where it spins based on the angle you turn it at physically. So when you want to rewind the screw, you turn it this way. When you want to fast forward, you turn it that way. You turn your wrist whichever way you want it to go. It is the most beautiful invention. I love it. It's so logical. It's so beautifully logical.
You got a soldering iron back there, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
You look like a soldering iron kind of guy.
Oh, soldering is kind of fun, actually. My soldering iron right now, well, the collar kind of fell off, so I got to kind of get it fixed. But yeah, no, soldering's a kick. I mean, it gets super frustrating, but it's a really good skill to have because it comes into so many different areas of work.
Yep. John also replaces toilets in his spare time, just so you know. Hey, Josh, thank you for the kind words. Wish we could get this kind of words out of FAP every now and again. Spaced Out Radio is an epic podcast I choose over many others in a heartbeat. Thanks, buddy. We never hear that from FAP anymore. All right. Gorgeous Julie Rios, how are you? Oh, she's a John Hudson fan. She's like, look at that, John Hudson. Look at that, John Hudson. Brazzle's the plethora of fedora.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. You almost need to braid your hair.
My hair? Oh yeah. Well, I'm just running it as long as I get away with it before I gotta just Mr. Clean the whole thing. So
I hear you. All right, let's get going here. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. You know what? It's time for a little fedora. Don't you think? Yes, it is. Let's do this thing. Mr. John Hudson. Hold on. I can't find your theme song here. Oh, here it is. Hold on. Here we go. Weird. I already had it loaded in there. It's like it knew. All right, Fedora. Big brawl happening in Washington, D.C. thanks to Tim Burchett.
Yeah, this is really amazing. And it's to me, it's an interesting lesson because, I think a lot of us felt that this was something important. I think some of us may have felt it was more or less important than others did. But I think what we're seeing going on here and what we've been seeing going on for the last couple of days, I think is really starting to illustrate that they seem to be taking this more seriously than we are. This is a hell of an article, and this is written by The Hill, right? This is not some rag on the side of the aisle at the Safeway, right? So, and this is a well-written article. Yeah, they're quoting Elizondo and they're quoting Mellon, right? But they're also quoting a bunch of other people. It's well-researched. It's hard-hitting. It's to the point. And to me, it's like I said, it's the fact that the fact that people seem to have this impulse to fight against it as hard as they seem to be doing indicates to me that it's a much more serious problem than I gave it credit for.
Well, I mean, John, it's what we've been talking about for the last couple of days here, and we even got into it with the roundtable last Friday night, which was literally, this is about the military-industrial complex starting to flex its muscle, and the elected leaders of the country saying, you can't have that power. And the military coming back saying, yes, we can. And yes, we do.
Yeah, I guess I just would have hoped that would have been done in a more private setting, I guess. To me, it was just, I don't know. Like I said, I was a little taken back by how the whole thing played out. Because I think that, yeah, I just, I really didn't, I really thought that there was a good chance that the Pentagon didn't really take what they had presented as super seriously, and they were just saying, hey, this is a framework, this is an idea of where we want to start, sort of a thing. And instead, everyone seemed to be drawing lines in the sand and calling each other out. And I mean, it's getting vicious. I mean, in this article, they include a video of this guy, talking on the floor, and I mean, he's pissed off. He's mad, and I mean, it's people are getting up in arms about this. And to me, it says, like I said, it says to me that I wasn't taking. I mean, yeah, I knew what the Pentagon was doing was essentially the same kind of carbon copy thing they usually do, but I didn't take it to be as big of a risk to everything else as I think a lot of these people clearly are.
Well, I mean, I think this guy is seeing, this Tim Burchett. Okay, I really believe he is seeing the light of day.
Yes.
All right, that the military-industrial complex doesn't want to play ball with the elected officials, by the people and for the people, or for the people by the people, whatever your statement is down there. All right, and I think that a lot of these elected officials are blinded by the idea that what they say goes, that the law truly matters. And basically, and this is my interpretation of it, please correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, my interpretation of everything is that the military said, with the AOI MSG, basically said, you don't need to know anything. The public doesn't need to know anything. We've got this covered. We'll handle our own airspace. We'll handle our own investigations. And in the meantime, Senator Gillibrand, Senator Burchett, and many others, Marco Rubio, Mark Warner, and the list is growing. For once, the list is growing. They want to know what's going on, because this, to me, is showing that they really have been kept in the dark the last 70 plus years since Roswell. And they are basically standing up saying, we were elected to be the voice of the people. We want to know what's going on. The public, especially the American public, has a right. And they just got bitch slapped by their own military.
And the thing is that what you're really kind of clearly pointing out is that this has become quite an inflection point in a way. In that, essentially this is a prime example of the hypocrisy that we've been dealing with this entire time. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling. It really is. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling. But the thing is that I think, for me anyway, I think I don't know. I just got the impression that, because I mean, I've seen the military do this before, where they've tried to preempt Congress and do their own program, and very often in my historical experience, it's never been quite the threat to the main program that people seem to be treating this as. And so, I guess that's what's kind of surprising me, because I mean, the DoD can do whatever they want. If Congress goes and mandates a bunch of stuff, that stuff legally trumps what we gotta stop using that term. That legally, trumps is on top of whatever the DoD decides, right? Because it is basically ruled that way. So, and yeah, I mean, this is quite an inflection, and quite a everyone kind of calling their cards on the card table.
It's going to be amazing, dude. I think this is the beginning of something that could get ugly.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to paint a very perverse picture of this, but I believe it could get very ugly. I think that if the politicians keep going at this, we could see, I don't even want to know what we could see. Well, I do, because I'm curious.
But no, but to your point, let's face it, if if you really take in all of what we're talked about in all of its context, you bring in all the mill lab stuff, you bring in everything out. Like this is not a light topic, and once people kind of wake up to what's going on, it really the whole red pill thing is a good analogy, right? Because once you see it, and I think you're right. I think that gentleman, I think a lot of others are slowly seeing it, and I think that as this backlash grows, I think that you are going to see a showdown of sorts. But let's face it, if it's as serious of a cover up as some people think it is, if it's been going on for as long as it has been, if it covers as much U.S. capital and as much U.S. investment dollars as some people seem to think it is, it probably should blow up in a certain way, right? And this will be a big deal.
Well, let's move on to number 2, as we have Robert Bigelow, the Las Vegas billionaire, announcing winners of his near-death contest.
Yeah. So this, I mean, first off, I want to applaud Mr. Bigelow for announcing a contest, coming up with the rules, publicizing everything, putting everything in the clear, and announcing winners in a rather short order, right? I mean, this actually, the whole thing kind of came and went pretty quick, which I think is kind of cool. Now, this is, you may feel different ways about this or that, because, I think to a certain degree, I would have preferred if some completely random people had won. But as many of you may know him, Jeffrey Mishlove, who is a psychiatrist and someone who's been involved in this community for a number of years with his shows that he's put on. And he actually ended up winning the top prize, which was $500,000 US. That's that's not chump change. That's a significant amount of money. And second prize was 300,000. Third prize was 150,000. So I mean, this is some pretty serious money, and there's a bunch of people that won 50 grand. And so, most, if not all, of these essays will be published, so you can read them yourself. But to me, it's just this is Bigelow trying another vehicle to spur development and innovation in a area that he feels is lacking those things, right? And he's tried other things before. He tried NIDS. He tried this. He's trying to figure out how do you catalyze this? How do you find that ember and blow on it and get that flame to start? And I think this is just another attempt of his to do that. And I guarantee you that from the list of winners, some number of them will be selected and then brought in as part of some program that he'll do. That has to do with afterlife studies. So that would be my guess is what will happen.
Well, what was the purpose of this contest that Bigelow put up $1 million of his own money?
I think it ended up getting pushed out to 1.5. I really think it comes down to what I just said. I think that Bigelow is very frustrated. As many of us are, once you realize the amount of data that exists, and the fact that still people don't believe, it's very, very frustrating. And so I think, he's trying different vehicles to figure out how do I shake people and get people to actually act, right? And he tried the NIDS program, he tried other things, and I think this is just another vehicle that he's trying to say, look, if I can get this contest going, if I can get all these people debating this and discussing this, is this going to spur a lot of public debate about the afterlife and what it means and what's really going on? And let's face it, a lot of us have fallen into the study of that field over the years because of how other things drag us. And so it is something we're learning a lot about right now. And it is something we're learning new things about right now. And it is something that we're making new breakthroughs about right now. And so it is something that's interesting to talk about right now. But it's what his end game is, I don't really know.
All right. Finally tonight, Daniel Otis, Vice Magazine freelance writer, contributor to the magazine, kind of rips into Canadian UFOs. What do you got?
Yeah. Well, there was an interesting article, and I really, what I really wanted was, I really wanted to see what you thought of it. You know, because the thing is that this was a, you know, I'll cover it in a link in my notes, and I encourage everyone to read it. It's nicely written. It's certainly very thorough. But yeah, it's kind of damning. It certainly doesn't look good on Canadian military.
No, it doesn't. You know, and basically what's happened here is we got a real first report of CF-18s being scrambled into the airspace. We have not heard of this before. The government has denied it, even though we know that it is happening. And Daniel goes into a great piece about, you know, like, why are we finding out through FOIAs? You know, why are we finding out? Why aren't we having reports on this? And the funny part about it is, still up here, the politicians are silent. I'm actually going to make a phone call to my guy tomorrow in Ottawa to say, hey, dude, what's going on here? Why are we silent on this? Do we have the Canadian military industrial complex up here? Right? I'm going to ask.
Seemingly a more effective one.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask. And for Daniel, I know he's hot on the case. He's got a bunch of stories in the burner right now.
It's a good article. I mean, I encourage everyone to read it.
What did you like about it?
Well, to me, it was just it was more his tone and his approach to it, in that, you know, he was taking what I would argue is a very, you know, honest and discerning approach. I mean, to me, there was absolutely no I mean, this is just a really good, honest critique, you know, and you know, and he basically he really covers his bases, and, you know, to me, it's I guess my big question is, I don't understand how something like this can go unanswered.
Well, in the Canadian military, if we don't talk about it, it didn't happen. And the Canadian government has always been that way. And Canadians are too resident and too understanding and too sheepish to ask the questions.
Well, I will say this, though, that you know, we're only starting to see a lot of U.S. Congress people starting to speak out with any kind of passion in front of the cameras, and that's going to grow as it continues to have an effect. I think once that's seen more and more on the TV, that might encourage people to break out a little more. I think, you know, I think for a lot of people, they're really terrified of what it's going to do to their career.
Oh, as they should be.
You know, yeah, quite fairly. Yeah. Interesting times, though, for sure. Interesting times.
Oh, hugely. John, stick around, because we're going to get to Shirky Poo's news here quickly, and let me get the theme song up here. Shirky Poo's kicking it off with a new Guinness World Record. What happened here? Oh, it's a beauty. Yep. An Australian man broke the record, a decade-old one, when he let out the loudest burp ever recorded at 112.4 decibels. Neville Sharp of Darwin now owns himself a new world record. Said his wife encouraged him to go for it after he spent 5 years preparing by honing in the strength and the noise levels of his belches. Isn't that nice? All right, moving on here. I actually saw this a couple of years ago in my area, and it cracked me up. In Alberta, wildlife officials are trying to track down a deer after it was spotted wandering with Christmas lights wrapped around its antlers. Doesn't appear to be in any distress, but old Rudolph here was hanging out in Okotoks The deer have been wandering around town with the strand of lights wrapped around its antlers since at least November 3rd. Alberta Fish and Wildlife said officers investigated the reports and determined the deer was still able to forage, find food, and water, so they decided not to take any action. In order to safely remove the wire, officers would have to physically restrain the deer and or tranquilize it, which could cause unnecessary physical and mental stress. That's okay, because in about a month or two, the deer's going to lose the antlers and the Christmas lights will fall off with it. So that's quite okay. What do we got here? Scientists could peer at least 9 months into a Tasmanian devil's past by studying its whiskers. The long, wiry whiskers on these stocky marsupials holds chemical imprints from food they've eaten in the past. Records that could help tell broader stories about their foraging habits, habit use, habitat, habitual, I don't know, I just want to say habit again. And now they respond to the environment. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? All right, here we go. Thought of the day is as follows. Yesterday was the SOR 7th anniversary. What's your top SOR moment? Lizzie, the dog farting with Lynn. I still think it was Lynn. Vince, the Butch Witkowski moments. Katie, top SOR moment, finding the show. Tom, any show with Ronald Murphy or Eric Maltman. Or, yeah, that's it. Andrew, the alien hunter, funny as F. Yeah, Daryl, he was pretty good. Let's see, Lee, Uncle's Fingers, Ted Bastian, like Swamp Dweller. Science Bob, meeting me at UFO Con. Sherry, your live streams during the wildfires, hearing your exhaustion and fear really made you a real person instead of just a radio voice, because I do have a face for radio. Let's move on here. Tom Whitmore, first time you invited him on the show. Shirky Poo says, when Dave could not stop laughing over the news story of the guy who got his testicles stuck in a webbed shower stool and could not get them free. Oh my God. Yes, I remember that. And Merle even chimed in, said the best part about SOR and the roundtable and the show in general, well, it's Merle. Thank you, everybody, for a wonderful anniversary yesterday. You guys are incredible. Thank you to our audience today for hanging on out. Shirky Poo for the news. John Hudson with the UFO Report. Jon Sumple, our guest tonight. What a great show. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Come on, John, with me. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone checking us out on YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, TikTok, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. It's year 8. We just added a new cart to the train here. Good night. Hey, John boy. Hold on, let me take these things off. Tired of these. Come on. Couldn't even play the audio or the speaker side of this tonight. Hold on, let me turn you up. Where are you? You're muted. Unmute your mic, dude.
Yeah, they're good. Unmuted. Yeah, no, sorry about that. Yeah.
That's okay.
Mm.
All right, I'm gonna upload this to December 1st. I had to put in a new another show for the radio stations. We were getting no audio because Windows 11 wanted to update on my laptop. Yeah. Hey, there's gorgeous Gloria. Derek Ning, how are you, buddy?
I don't know if I still have it, but somewhere I have a T-shirt that says "Friends don't let friends run Windows."
Yeah, I know. I know. And I ran out of water. What's happening? You don't look as tired as last night.
Yeah, got a little better sleep today, and had a good interview today. So things go out well. I might finally have a job soon. So we'll see.
Oh, nice. Then you're gonna quit us.
No, come on, no. I mean, depending how much work there is, we'll see how it goes.
You're
but
just a
Yeah,
candle
we'll
in
see.
your wind.
Yeah, we'll see. It looks like it might involve some travel, so we'll see what happens. But hopefully it won't be too impactful.
Right on, dude. Right on. I don't know what we do now. I have no archives to edit. What do we do? I don't even know.
Well, answer questions.
All right. Who's got questions? I cannot show the picture. It was given to me in confidence for an opinion.
What picture are we talking about here?
I got sent a picture tonight by someone asking me, is it alien or is it a ghost? And it looks like about a 5.5 to 6 foot alien gray.
Wow.
Yeah.
We should totally have an event we should have an event at some of these conferences where it's like a room you go into and everyone brings in a copy of a picture they've been given at some point in their lives and told not to release it until someone dies or not to release until something happens. And all of you like just put your picture out on like this one table at once, and you're allowed to move them around and look at everyone else's pictures, but you only get like a certain period of time, and then when the time's up, everyone takes their pictures back and you start the process over again. And because it drives me nuts how many people are sitting around with information. And look, I get it. Like, I mean, I've had people, tell me stuff where, I have no intention of telling anyone those things until after that person's passed away. They didn't even ask me to do it. I still don't have any intention of doing it. Right. So I get it, but it's like, whoa, I don't know.
Yep. Right on, man.
Dave looking like a Pokemon.
Who?
Someone said in the chat, it said Dave was looking like a new Pokemon. And
Oh, yeah, right there. You're a Pokemon.
Thought that was pretty clever.
Okay, hey, we got audio again. Testing 1, 2. Okay, we got audio there. That's good. So I can close that down. We're going to have audio there now. I just got to figure out this audio between my radio DJ and StreamYard. I don't know what to do there.
And so what are you seeing? What is the result of what you're seing?
I can't get the audio from radio DJ to play on StreamYard. Oh, I know what I wanted to check.
And what is the physical connection between those two?
They're on the same computer.
Okay, so they're on the same computer, and is the output file of the unit, does it output a file type that StreamYard knows how to accept.
I go that way. Hold on. Program needs to be restarted. I turned this one off too quick. Okay, let's restart the program. I'm testing something out here because
No
I'm
worries.
pretty sure I'm going to have to share the program to StreamYard. So share the screen right there. And then play that. YouTube, tell me if you hear this. Come on. Hold on, I haven't hit play yet. Okay, I'm not hearing anything.
I'm not either.
So it's not that one. Hi, Mystics Walk. Okay, we're going through a process here. Okay, so this one needs to be audio codec. All right, we got that. And then monitoring queue might have to be speakers. Let's try that. Close. Okay.
Well, you hit close instead of save, so I don't think it actually saved the setting change you just made.
Yes, it does. It automatically
does?
saves.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because it asks you to. Okay, so we got that. Okay, so now we got to fire this one up. Fire it back up again. All right. Let's try this again.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron.
I can hear that now.
Yeah, but that's off my microphone.
Well, I can still hear it there, but it's quieter.
One sec. Of course, I got to play a fucking commercial here.
Make sure to keep on listening because with Spaced Out Radio, you know little brother is watching.
Of course, I got to play a fucking commercial here. Okay, I got to turn down my headphones and just see. Hold on, we're going to play this again. Okay, I got to turn down my headphones and just see. Hold on, we're going to play this again. Nothing. Oh, shush. That's my headphones there. All right. Hi, John.
Somebody.
Well, that didn't work. Let's try something else. Oh, yeah, that's what I need to do here. Hold on. Trying to get these two programs to talk to each other. Not having much success.
Yeah, see they're I mean, and you know, there's probably someone out there that that knows how to use the Windows little scripting language to do, because you can actually do some stuff on Windows now that you used to not be able to do. But basically, what you're looking for is there are essentially what are called, are in a POSIX world, they're called pipes. There are throughput devices, virtual devices that exist in memory that connect one application to another. and there's probably multiple ports being used, and they each have different purposes and so forth. And essentially, there should be some way to sniff that transit point and actually pull data out of it and see what's in there, and actually figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you do that in Windows.
Let's see. Raven is Ryan. Are you running all these programs as admin as well? Yeah.
Oh, how I loathe Windows.
It's not affecting. See, I run 2 computers during the show, just so people can know. It's not affecting the audio side for the podcast. The audio side for the podcast is getting the music. That's not an issue. It's transferring from here, which is called Radio DJ, into StreamYard, which we are broadcasting to. And that's where we cannot get the audio into. That's the problem. No, I haven't asked Thomas yet. Tried that, Lazarus. Doesn't work. Does not work. Close. Frig. Frig. Oh, of course they don't have a tech number. I'm gonna try. See if StreamYard has a Facebook group. All right. Well, they do. Let's go like that. Let's go to groups. Do they have any groups? StreamYard Community Official. Let's go in there. All right, I've added myself. I've put in the request. Put in the request. I use it for my radio show. I need some tech answers. I agree to the groups, but I hate all this bullshit. You know, I literally put in our group for a while when we had the Space Travelers Club. I had put a question in the group. Please name my favorite Guns N' Roses song. And then in brackets right beside it, I put hint, it's Paradise City. You wouldn't believe how many times I got Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet Child of Mine, Night Train,
Oh,
Civil
that's
War,
awesome.
You Could Be Mine, Patience, November Rain.
Patience. Oh, man.
No, Radio DJ doesn't play on a cord. My microphone is plugged into my USB mixing board, which is plugged into my hard drive, which is then wired into my laptop computer. It's kind of cool setup, actually. Mike L. Dry Toast, the best name in YouTube, right there. I'm wondering if I need like a virtual cable between the two.
Yeah. I have no idea how that would work in Windows, but a dedicated I/O channel between the two applications is probably exactly what's going on. I mean, it drives me nuts. There's no way to like ask Windows like what like in what way is this application talking to this other application, and what is that saying back to that application? You know, like some way. Drives me nuts. Debugging
Good
this
night,
stuff is
rooted
real
in
hard.
gorgeous sacredness. Her alarm goes off in 4 hours, 15 minutes. I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
And are those both paid applications?
Radio DJ is not. It's a free application that
Okay.
many people use. It's very
Okay.
popular. StreamYard I pay for.
Okay. So you should be able to call StreamYard support then and find out do they have any documents specifically on usage with what's the other one called again?
Yeah, with Radio DJ.
Yeah.
They want you to fill out an email ticket. I don't want an email fucking ticket. I just want somebody to talk to.
Oh, Dave, but you don't understand. Like when you're in those centers, if you don't have a ticket number, if you're caught working on anything that doesn't have a ticket number associated to it, you can get fired. Those ticket numbers are everything. Like your whole world runs by those ticket numbers. Those ticket numbers are how many tickets you close.
You like ticket
period.
numbers. I'm going to call you ticket number John.
Well, no, I used to live in that world, man, and it sucks, but you got to get used to it because it's just the way it works. I mean, they end up being the unique identifier that everyone tracks.
We're going to the live chat here. Hold on. Is StreamYard or help? I cannot get StreamYard to play my audio from Radio DJ audio program. How do I do this? Start the chat. Oh, Alyssa has joined the chat. Now, is this a real person or not? All right. Hi, Dave Scott. This is Alyssa.
Who is a real person these days anyway?
Huh?
I said, who is a real person these days anyway?
True. Hi. Here comes the automation bullshit. How can I help you? Where is the sound coming from? Radio DJ. It will not play through StreamYard. And I'm hungry.
You never want to be debugging this kind of stuff when you're hungry, Dave. Bad news.
I know. Are you screen sharing? Yes. I'm going to test YouTube on this for a second. Here's a tutorial on how to screen. All right.
You watched some weird stuff, Dave.
Yeah. Horror stories. This guy always, the Hoof GP, this guy just totally intrigues me, man. I don't know what this pneumonia thing is. South Park, increased penis length. What the hell is that all about? I like the whales and shark stuff. I really do.
Yeah.
This drone guy, the Malibu artist, he's pretty cool. Hold on, I gotta listen to this lady.
With audio, what we're going to learn about today.
Okay, so let's go Bumblefoot. Little.
So I'm going to walk you through screen sharing now. So you're in the studio and you click share screen at the bottom of your screen.
Uh-huh.
This will pull up a pop-up that lets you choose between your entire screen, which is, you can see my 2 monitors here.
Uh-huh.
Application window, which is
Yeah.
your Google Chrome. You also have Slack. Those are just the applications that I have open on my screen. You cannot share the audio from an application. So now we have Chrome tab. This is where you can share the audio. So I'm just going to select.
Hold on, pause this. Go like this. 1 sec, watching. Watching. All right, so now we're gonna share screen.
Lazarus, you take that back. It's a horrible thing to say to people.
Okay, so we got that. Hold on. We're getting places here.
Screen. You cannot share the audio from an application. So now we have Chrome tab. This is where you can.
Oh, hold on. So if I go to Chrome tab,
Dave had an epiphany.
hold on. If I go like this, where's my? Hold on, let's go here. Entire screen, Chrome tab. Radio DJ doesn't appear. Oh, it's because I'm not. Hold on, am I not sharing? Hold on. Share screen, Chrome tab. Nope, doesn't work. Radio DJ program doesn't appear in the Chrome tab because it's a computer program on my secondary screen. I can see it when I share, but it's not showing up because I think it's not a Chrome tab. So let's try something else here. What about a window? Share. So if I go like this now, I'll turn my headphones down and speakers down. Actually, I don't need to. I don't need to because I got my phone here, which will probably. Oh, shut up, Dave. I hear myself here. Hold on. What's StreamYard Lady saying? StreamYard Lady. Yes, sadly, it needs to be a Chrome tab. Well, that helps me. Like a kick to the nuts. How come then it was able to work when my previous mixing board was running my audio.
Does that mean that the mixing board was sitting between those two applications before?
Must have been. Hold on.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio.
The
This
mixing
is
board was
Ron
sitting
Bumblefoot
between
Ball.
those two
Come
applications.
tune into SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio.
That's a microphone.
Bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music apps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember...
Yeah, we don't want that audio. That's for sure. So then if I go like this, what mixer I had? A PreSonus 16.0.2 USB. Right now, I am using a USB 4 channel. And now I don't have audio, even though I am running through the board and getting audio to Spreaker as well. You can bring in the audio from another computer program by using virtual audio mixer like Loopback or Voice Meter.
Loopback might actually be interesting. That might be the cleaner way to do it.
The hell is Loopback?
Loopback is just—it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a hairpin turn. It basically just means that you send the signal and it does a U-turn, comes right back.
Please, can you check it to see if it has an option on StreamYard? It does, because that's how my microphone is getting audio. So somehow Radio DJ is obviously going through the USB 4-channel mixer to my other computer, which is running Spreaker.
Oh, so Zero, cool. So on Windows, it's called the virtual MIDI, but on the Mac, it's called a loopback.
I wonder. Hold on a second here. Let's just try something here for a second.
Dave's letting his artistic side take over.
Oh, I just want to see something here.
No, follow your instincts, man. Go for it.
Okay, hold on.
The best way to stay in touch with my music and sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and
Well, now I'm just getting feedback. Let's turn my... My microphone is running on channel 1. My microphone is running on channel 1. Can't even see right now. No, StreamYard can handle more than one input. Kind of lost here, Johnny. Let's see here. Okay, let's try another channel. Okay, so hold on one second. The USB is plugged into here, which is where the microphone goes in here to it. So that would mean that radio DJ is going through the USB cord from the computer into here, which would mean, I wonder if that would do it.
God, that playing is amazing. Yeah.
Did that play?
Yeah, I could hear it. It was quiet, but I could hear it.
Okay.
Man, I don't know if I was picking it up off of your speakers or if I was picking it up directly, but you know, I could hear it.
Okay, so let's try this again. I'm going to mute my microphone on StreamYard. All right, that didn't work. Let's try this.
Yeah, browser is pretty
Okay,
safe thing to say.
This does have a loop back. Hold on. My board has a loop back. Loop back. Is that what you're talking about? Let's try this. Okay, let's try this here. Yes, please. Okay, so let's try this. I'm going to go mute again. I'll give you a countdown. Testing. 1 sec. Nothing. Nothing. Nada. Zilch. Zip.
I mean, is it possible it's some licensing issue or some like
No, because it's running through the board, the same board, to get to StreamYard.
Huh.
Edit name, stop screen. Okay, it's on the loop back. What time is your stream? Would it be possible for you to come back in a few hours when my colleagues are on? Yes. I can do that in the morning. It's 12:33 a.m. here on the west coast of Canada. I'm going to get this figured out for tomorrow.
No worries, man. No worries. It's kind of an interesting problem, but
I have a feeling we're getting closer. I do. And this Alyssa girl is really nice. You have been in capital letters. Fantastic. with your customer service tonight.
Does she work for StreamYard?
For StreamYard, yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Thank you so much.
Dave,
Yeah.
no joke. If you have 5 minutes, send an email to the organization where she works, and like address it to like her manager, right? And tell them what a cool job she did, because a lot of times these people that do well like that, their own managers don't even know what's happening. It's really amazing.
All right, I'll do that. All right, I'll check this out tomorrow. I'm going to deal with that tomorrow. I should have it hopefully fixed for tomorrow. Hopefully. Huge buck just walked by. Critter report. We got a Joe Monk critter report. Oh well.
Huge buck. Crazy.
Close that out for the night. Doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, I agree, Spooky. Between Thanksgiving and Halloween, I think I put on like actually I put on like 17 pounds. Crazy.
You're fat.
Well, at the moment,
I lost 17 pounds by shaving my beard. I didn't realize I had cheeks.
And you're so cute.
Oh, thank you. Teresa told me that she wants to pull on my mustache. Carbines, what's happening?
So, Dave, the latest movie that you interviewed the guy for, the latest movie of the of his things, that's the one you've seen that you enjoyed?
I watched it. I've enjoyed all three of them. I thought number 2 was a little slow, but I've enjoyed all three of them. I really have.
Yeah, the first one just unfortunately is tainted with who the subject was. But I agree. I think it was a good one.
It's too bad. The first one with Stan Romanek was incredible until like literally it was what like not even a month before the charges came down, before the release.
I know, and it was horrible timing. But yeah, but I'm glad you said that because I've tried to watch the second one, and I haven't been able to get through it, and it's not because it's not well done. It just, to me, it wasn't like super compelling. I wasn't like really learning anything terribly new, and it didn't have much of a pace to it. And so the fact that you got that kind of feedback as well, that makes me feel a little bit better. I'll try to check out the new one as soon as I can.
All right. Tomorrow night on the show, we're going to talk Mothman with Steve Ward. It's going to be a good show, man. Really good show.
You know what detail I picked up on that the other day is an old interview of Keen that he did with Art Bell, where he talks about the fact that there was a smell. There was a smell associated with Mothman that no one talks about anymore, but Keen talked about it in that old interview with Art Bell.
Wow. Spooky Morales. It's almost time to warm up that trumpet. Big thank you to Simply Coco, Thomas, Kira, Gong Show ×2, Phil, and Smithy for the super chats. Remember, you can check out all of our brand new swag right here on our YouTube channel if you scroll down below, and our store on our website, spacedoutradio.com. We would appreciate that. Thank you so much for the love. We're going to be adding more swag soon on both. And thank you to all the veterans out there. You guys are absolutely amazing. Follow us on every social media platform, including TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. And it is that time once again. Mr. Spooky Morales on the trumpet tonight.